Pokemon, medicine and martial arts. Hey! Look who's back for more adventures. We love having you here to continue this story that keeps us all awake. Important note, all of this is pure fiction, so don't try any techniques you hear here in real life. Your neighbor might call the cops. This amazing novel and all its rights belong to the original author. We're just the ones giving it voice and drama. Are you enjoying the show? Prove it by subscribing to our YouTube channel and leaving that like that motivates us so much. And if you want VIP access to exclusive content, our Patreon is waiting with things you won't find anywhere else. Chapter 376 Prank. Oh, they say doctors can't heal themselves. Now I finally believe it. Yu was still brooding over the bow tie incident, occasionally looking up at it. Perhaps due to his growing strength, Yu no longer carried any medicine for external injuries, and traveled the world with only a set of silver needles. After all, even without those auxiliary medicines, he still had the internal energy to heal himself, but it would be more troublesome and time-consuming. How great would it be to have a Chansey or other Pokemon with healing skills at this time? Yu thought secretly. Unlike human medical skills, some can heal Pokemon, but some cannot. Most Pokemon healing skills, in addition to being useful for themselves and other Pokemon, can also be used on humans. For example, Chansey or the type of medical assistants like Miss Joy, Chansey, at least have the ability to assist in healing. No, I guess I have to find time to capture a Pokemon of this type sometime. Would that be awesome for the whole team? Yu couldn't help but think to himself, a smile slowly growing on his face. Then, with my own healing skills, and the help of a nurse-type Pokemon, I'll be working non-stop, with an unstoppable supply of milk. It's such a relief. What's Yu thinking? Why are you grinning so happily, looking at the smirking Yu in front of her? Ayer couldn't help but wave her hand in front of him. Xiaozhi and Serena exchanged bewilderment, their faces furrowed as they watched Yu practically drool. Though they remained silent about Yu's behavior, they were filled with joy and happiness inside. After all, Yu wasn't like this when it came to other people. He usually communicates with others with a wise, calm and confident face. Only when facing familiar people will Yu show the silly and somewhat stupid look, showing his truest side without any defense. Serena covered her mouth and chuckled, looking at Yu's silly look, with an inexplicable meaning in her heart. On the other hand, Pichu and Buzzbit, who were standing by, saw that Yu was fine and saw the somewhat baffling scene in front of them. The two Pokemon couldn't help but look at each other in confusion, as if to say that the human world is too complicated, and the relationship between men and women is too profound. What is all this? Why can't the two of them understand or see it? Buzzbat, boss, what's wrong with Yu? Why is he so similar to the usual Gyarados? Both have silly faces. Pikachu, who knows? Maybe this is the master's hobby. And this is not the first time he is like this. Why are you still so curious? Faced with a question of Buzzbit, the junior, Pikachu did not act like a boss, but just shrugged. Buzzbat bit its little paws gently, and with its petite body, it looked indescribably cute. I'm just curious. It feels like the master is two people. It's not like this when he trains us normally. Pikachu, okay, don't think too much, little guy. Your question is too profound, and my knowledge as your boss is limited. Just remember, no matter what the master becomes, he will not treat us unfairly. Buzzbat, oh. Okay. After listening to the teachings and warnings of his senior, Pikachu, Buzzbat nodded as if he understood. Pika, okay, stop overthinking. Think more about improving your own strength, you little brat. Let's go check on Charmeleon and comfort him. After all, you're younger. And he loves you more. Okay, I can tell Charmeleon-senpai is very sad right now. Boss, come with me. Buzz looked at Pikachu timidly, his eyes blinking. Even Pikachu, known as the god of cuteness, couldn't resist. Under Buzz's gaze, Pikachu finally gave in and agreed to accompany Buzz to comfort Charmeleon. Meanwhile, as Pikachu and Buzz left to find Charmeleon, they missed the transformer-shaped Pokemon egg. Inside the egg, two large eyes, filled with cunning, appeared. When Pikachu was there, he was terribly nervous about the transformer-shaped Pokemon egg, fearing it might be recognized. His prank would be ruined. After all, this prank, a brilliant idea he'd come up with on the spur of the moment, couldn't be ruined by a cute electric mouse. That's right. This transformer-shaped Pokemon egg was Ditto's creation. When it first transformed into Pokemon egg, Ditto was simply thinking of playing a game with 3 fire-type Pokemon, which Ditto considered attractive female creatures. Later, with the arrival of Serena and Air, Ditto realized he hadn't been caught or recognized, and thought his prank was a perfect one. So, Ditto forgot about a game with a fire-type Pokemon and went back to his own prank. As insiders, the 3 fire-type Pokemon were well aware of Ditto's prank, which led to Charmeleon's arrival. After the 3 fire-type companions understood the entire situation, Charmeleon threatened the Pokemon Egg. Although they had learned of Ditto's prank from the long-tailed Flame and the others, Charmeleon, unaware of its true form, could only resort to physical force. However, Ditto was cunning and, instead of being forced to reveal its true form by Charmeleon, it even played Charmeleon in return, earning a wave of sympathy. This led to the current situation, where Charmeleon was mistakenly reprimanded by Yu. As for Pikachu, due to time constraints and Ditto's intervening antics, the long-tailed Flame and the others were repeatedly delayed in revealing the truth to Pikachu. Chapter 377 Incident. If there's nothing else, then let's all go. Dinner's still not ready. If this drags on, we'll be hungry tonight. Xiaoxu, feeling a sense of helplessness, glanced at the other 2 women, then at Yu, and spoke first. Yeah, that's right. It's already so late. Looking up at the gradually darkening sky, Serena finally caught on and made a move to return with Xiaoxu to continue making dinner. Air, on the other hand, didn't immediately agree with her 2 best friends. Instead, she withdrew her hand from Yu's eyes and gently patted her shoulder to help her regain her composure. Then, under Yu's puzzled gaze, Air smiled a charming and sweet smile. Even the dim light couldn't dampen her breathtaking presence. What's the matter? Are you stunned? You've never seen such a beautiful woman, Air chuckled. This smile brought Yu back to his senses. He scratched his hair in embarrassment, his expression completely blank. Okay, I won't tease you anymore. Yu, go check on Charmeleon. What you said just now was indeed a bit too much. Maybe Charmeleon had a reason for what he did. You don't always get so impulsive when it comes to Pokemon. You've lost your composure. This isn't your usual calm self, Air lectured Yu sternly, a hint of disappointment in his words. Yu, on the other hand, was quite cooperative. Rather than being cooperative, Yu felt a surge of regret and began to reflect on himself. Yu was the type of person who could admit his mistakes and listen carefully to others' opinions. Therefore, in his opinion, apologizing to Pokemon wasn't anything to be ashamed of. After all, in his self-perception, Pokemon were his friends, not to mention his own. So, when someone apologizes for something wrong, whether it's to a person or a Pokemon, the slightest bit of embarrassment is non-existent. Yes, Yu. Although I don't want to say anything, it seems your words just now really hurt Charmeleon. It seemed very sad just now. At this moment, even Serena, who always took Yu's side in everything, quickly chimed in. Serena's words made Yu even more embarrassed, and his guilt towards Charmeleon deepened. He had been too impulsive and spoke without thinking. But for some reason, Yu just couldn't stand seeing Pokemon get hurt. Whenever he saw a Pokemon being bullied, he couldn't help but stand up for it. Of course, this didn't include Pokemon that did all sorts of bad things, or helped the bad guys do evil. At least, despite his impulsiveness, Yu still had the ability to distinguish right from wrong. Well, okay, I'll go check on it. Yeah, go ahead. Charmeleon seems really down. I even thought I saw it cry just now. Don't worry. We'll take care of dinner. We promise you won't go hungry tonight, Xiaoxu playfully gestured. Just as Yu was about to set off for Charmeleon, urged on by the 3 women, something unexpected happened. Hey, Air, look. I'm not seeing things, am I? What's going on? Serena patted Air's shoulder repeatedly, her face filled with excitement and disbelief. After Serena's repeated pats, Air had no choice but to look in the direction Serena pointed. The spot she found was exactly where the Pokemon eggs were kept. But the next moment, Air wasn't much better. Her mouth was slightly open, almost enough for an egg, and her beautiful eyes widened slightly. What's going on? The Transformer ate the egg. No. The Transformer is actually an egg. What's going on? The egg eats the egg. Are you trying to make a double yolk? Hearing Serena's exclamation, not only did Air look in the direction Serena pointed, but Xiaoxu and Yu also joined in. Yu's foot, which had been about to take a step forward, subconsciously stopped mid-air, and he stood on one leg, staring blankly at the scene before him. He saw that the Pokémon egg they had named the Transformer egg had, at some point, become like a magnet, clinging to the other Pokémon egg. If that were all, Yu and the others wouldn't have lost their composure. The main thing was that the Transformer Pokémon egg, the moment it attached to the other Pokémon egg, transformed into invisible, colorless water, but to everyone's eyes, it looked more like a lump of plasticine. Starting from one end of the Pokémon egg, it gradually enveloped the Pokémon egg within. The original Transformer Pokémon egg had vanished. Like ice cream melting under the scorching sun, it began to rapidly dissolve into a shapeless mass. Yet, Yu, Serena, and the other two girls felt the unknown object before them was eerily familiar. Yet, in their shock, none of them had recovered, their eyes still fixed on it, blinking incessantly. The focal point, the transformation of the two Pokémon eggs, continued unabated. The Transformer Pokémon eggs had completely melted, their former egg-like form unrecognizable. It sounded like a ball of Play-Doh, gradually enveloping the other Pokémon egg. The process resembled the swallowing of a Pokémon egg, or more accurately, a mouth gradually engulfing the Pokémon. However, the process was not as terrifying as imagined. Instead, it had a unique sense of humor. The gradual wriggling of the unknown object gave people a very exciting feeling. Because this change came so suddenly, at this moment, whether it was Yu or Serena and the other two, they had forgotten to rush up to stop it or investigate the situation. In fact, it was not that they didn't want to go up at this moment, but faced with such an unknown situation, they were unsure of what to do. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 378 Super Ancient Pokémon. The fusion of the two Pokémon eggs continued. While this scene would have been noisy, it was surprisingly quiet. The pin-drop environment seemed to be causing some discomfort for the two Pokémon currently fusing. As the fusion continued, mysterious noises emanated from the air. Even the three fire-type Pokémon seemed uneasy with the silence, and they hurried back to their respective homes. Each fled to their trainer, as if only in this way could they feel safe. Each hid behind their trainer, then peeped out with a mixture of curiosity and fear, quietly observing the unfolding scene. Seeing this somewhat eerie scene before him, Yu hesitated to act rashly, fearing that a sudden disturbance would exacerbate the situation, though the current situation wasn't much better either. Right. I need to ask Baidu. How could I have forgotten? Yu had calmed down by now. He slapped his head, a little annoyed. Baidu, what is that? Yeah, I think it's a general term for the Chinese internet. But in this case, what effect can Baidu have? Xiaoxu explained, then looked puzzled. Xiaoxu is right. Yu played it off for a moment, then, once he'd caught the girl's attention, he pulled something out of his pocket. Ding ding ding, I really can't ask Baidu right now, but do I have a Pokédex? If you have any questions about Pokémon, you can look it up in the Pokédex. Pokédex, yes, it's pictures of Pokémon. It's called the Pokémon Guide. Everything related to Pokémon can be found in it. Of course, that doesn't include things that haven't been researched yet or are unknown. Yu, radiating confidence, first scanned the Pokédex over the Pokémon egg that was being continuously fused and devoured. Then, to the girl's anticipation, he began to manipulate the Pokédex. Even as Yu searched the Pokédex, the egg continued to devour. By this point, the normal Pokémon egg was completely and seamlessly encased by the so-called Transformer Pokémon egg. No longer the naturally occurring color of a Pokémon's birth, the entire Pokémon egg was now a blood red, like a drop of blood, giving it a chilling feeling. At least from a human perspective, the Pokémon egg lying quietly on the lawn looked eerie, sending a chill down one's spine. And while everyone's tastes differ, especially when it comes to core Pokémon, judging by the actions of the three fire-type Pokémon, this eerie Pokémon egg not only left a bad impression on the tired, but also on the Pokémon themselves. Serena, who as the more timid, had already cradled the Firefox in her arms and retreated behind her son. Like the three fire-type Pokémon before her, each Pokémon poked its head out, its eyes filled with a mixture of fear at the unknown and terrifying, yet also a hint of curiosity. But at this moment, not only Serena, but even the braver Air and Xiaoxu felt their scalps tingle, their hearts trembling with fear. Their steps moved in unison towards Yu. These seemingly disparate movements seemed perfectly coordinated at this moment. Serena, hiding behind air, was unwilling to be left behind. She followed the two women ahead, surprisingly not falling behind at all. Throughout this movement, the three women, not only nervous and fearful, but also warily watched the changing Pokémon egg. They feared that at any moment, this bloody, eerie Pokémon egg would suddenly hatch a monster. After all, this world is truly amazing. Take Pokémon, for example. There are all sorts of Pokémon, even ones that have yet to be discovered. And the monsters the three women imagined were not impossible to appear. After all, super ancient Pokémon are comparable to legendary monsters. Perhaps to others, ancient Pokémon were mere legends, some even never having heard of them. But for Yu, it was easy to accept, even ranking it among the things he least wanted to recall. Unlike the enormous and swift legendary beasts like Groudon, Kyogre, and Palkia, the ancient Pokémon were at least as large as these larger beasts. Even Jigglypuff, normally so tiny that it could be easily overlooked, was on par with Groudon in its ancient form. Once upon a time, when Yu was not a trainer but a chivalrous warrior traveling through China, he encountered a team of archaeologists researching the history of ancient Pokémon. Because of that incident, a pair of predators, a pair of ancient Snake and Stoat, were unleashed from the ruins of their excavation. It can only be said that the irreconcilable conflict between Snake and Slither is a legacy dating back to ancient times. Naturally, when natural enemies meet, jealousy reigns supreme. At the time, Snake and Slither, whether summoned or reawakened, had barely recovered from their reawakening, but upon seeing their natural enemies, they immediately engaged in combat. The scene was a blazing darkness, the sun and moon extinguished. Wherever the two ancient Pokémon passed, darkness practically shrouded the sky. A single attack from one of them was as destructive as a massive explosion. Had it not been for the critical moment, when archaeologists deciphered ancient texts and summoned an even more powerful ancient Pokémon for analysis, the aftermath of the clash between the two ancient Pokémon would have rippled far beyond the surrounding area. The sheer volume of destruction from the clash between these two Pokémon would have been at least as large as a town, and that wasn't the end of it, and it was only a rough estimate at the time. Chapter 379 Yu's Experience. Therefore, for Yu, the so-called monsters did exist. In his view, any ancient Pokémon was practically a shrew beast, even the weakest Magikarp. If an ancient Magikarp existed today, any single one could practically sweep the world, the destructive power of any of their abilities being astonishing. The scene of the ancient Pokémon battle between Snake and Skank remained unforgettable to Yu. This was also because the ruins were originally located in a remote, desolate mountain area, and due to their natural enemies, they were entangled in each other. Otherwise, the nearest town to the battle would likely have suffered. Furthermore, the statement that even the weakest Magikarp, in its ancient form, could sweep the world was no joke. The archaeologist team Yu had traveled with was also supported by many experts. Not to mention the lesser-known ones, just one region had two Alliance Kings deployed for protection. Remember, those were kings. A region's second highest power. While not as strong as the champions, the Pokémon they possessed were truly champion level, and their numbers weren't limited to just one or two instances. To act as a protective shield, the two kings brought their entire core teams with them. Besides the champion-level Pokémon brought by the kings, they also included a number of highly skilled trainers. The sheer number of Pokémon in their ranks was no exaggeration. They already boasted 12 champion-level Pokémon, with over 20 both near-champion and champion-level Pokémon. This was precisely why, despite knowing the inherent risks involved, Yu had decided to stay and join the excavation. After all, in his view, this seemingly unassuming excavation was a gathering of truly influential figures. With his love for Pokémon, Yu naturally wouldn't miss this opportunity to join in the fun. However, even this impressive lineup, in Yu's opinion, was like a battle between adults and children in the face of the ancient Snake and Skank, barely stirring the slightest ripple. With just a few casual blows, the near-champion level and king level Pokémon instantly lost their fighting ability. The champion level Pokémon, worthy of the title, could hold out longer, but only for a little longer. No single one could withstand a single attack from them, even if many champion level Pokémon were united. That incident terrified Yu, leaving him with a psychological scar. If it weren't for the strong spirit he'd cultivated over the years, he would have likely gone mad. After all, the scene he witnessed as a young man was akin to the war of the century. If one wasn't careful, the entire world would have been doomed. Of course, much of this was speculation, both from researchers and his own perspective. When ancient Pokémon collide with legendary beasts, it's still unclear which will prevail. After all, while humans and Pokémon are distinct entities, they are inseparable from each other, just like the ecosystem of the past. This suggests that, in Yiyu's subconscious, ancient Pokémon fall into the category of monsters, and monsters are synonymous with ancient Pokémon. However, Yiyu was unaware of what Serena and the other two were thinking. His attention was completely focused on the Pokédex. Looking at the contents displayed on the Pokédex, Yiyu's brow furrowed, then relaxed, and then furrowed again. What's going on? Yiyu's voice rasped in frustration. Clearly having spent a long while poring over the Pokédex and still not making any sense. When Yiyu regained consciousness, he noticed that Air and the other two girls' moans had ceased. Instead, just as he turned to look for them, he found the three girls staring at him with adorable, timid expressions. More precisely, they were staring at the Pokémon egg not far in front of him. What's wrong with you? What are you doing? Twucking like that? Is it cold? Yiyu asked curiously. You, Air stuttered. Serena's cheeks, however, couldn't help but blush after hearing Yiyu's question. No, it's mainly because that Pokémon egg suddenly became a little scary. Huh? Scary? I think it's okay. This Pokémon has become even more majestic and powerful. Yiyu looked in the direction Serena pointed, and after seeing the Pokémon's new appearance, although he didn't feel any discomfort, his eyes lit up. How could that be? That Pokémon egg gives us a very bad feeling. Xiaoxu also spoke up at this time, making her own comments. Hey, you girls are too timid. With your courage, the things you will experience on your trip will sometimes be many times more terrifying than this. Not to mention camping in the wild, which is a somewhat dangerous activity. Yiyu looked unconcerned, even mocking the three girls' cowardice. What? Yiyu, how can you be like that? We are girls. We are not straight men like you. Air rolled her eyes delicately, looking very annoyed. At the same time, because of Yiyu's jokes, the atmosphere in the field was no longer tense and depressing. Even so, Serena still held the Firefox tightly in her arms. Her pretty face was still full of tension, and her beautiful eyes were fixed on the Pokémon egg. Huh? Yiyu, don't talk about us. But you, how is your Pokémon encyclopedia information going? Have you gained anything? Air, who had completely recovered at this time, took the initiative to step forward to comfort Serena. At the same time, he changed the subject and looked at Yiyu curiously and asked, this? I'm still looking for it. The main reason is that even the Pokémon encyclopedia doesn't seem to record this kind of Pokémon egg, so it's really hard to find. Yiyu looked distressed, thinking that all his time just now was wasted, and he didn't gain anything. On the contrary, because of this, he was probably going to be teased by Air and the other three girls again. Ding ding ding. Chapter 380 Transformation. Beep, beep, beep. Suddenly, an electronic notification sound rang out, startling everyone who was still chatting. All eyes subconsciously turned to the strange Pokémon egg lying there, motionless. Huh? What's that sound? Serena became even more nervous, holding Firefox in one hand and tightly grasping Yiyu's robe with the other. Indeed, Serena was hiding behind Yiyu, who, in her opinion, gave her a greater sense of security. As for her best friend Air, this was the next time she had completely abandoned her. Therefore, Xiaoxu and Air were huddled together for warmth, both pairs of eyes staring at Serena with resentment. Beep, beep, beep. The sound rang out again, and this time Serena heard it clearly. It was an electronically synthesized mechanical sound. Ditto, the transforming Pokémon. It can freely reorganize its body cells and transform. Its only special move is transformation. Huh? Ditto. What's going on, Yiyu? When did your Pokédex get so advanced? It can even detect Pokémon that haven't hatched yet. It can detect anything. Yiyu now thought his Pokédex was too high-tech to detect a Ditto Pokémon egg. But how could it be Ditto? Yiyu was a little disappointed. After all, he already had a shiny Ditto. Deep down, he wanted a different Pokémon. Even if the Pokédex told him it was a caterpillar Pokémon egg, he would at least smile happily. This is easy to understand. Every trainer loves their own Pokémon, the more the better. Some aggressive trainers would capture almost every Pokémon they see, even if there are duplicates. He's a classic example of someone who loves every Pokémon he meets. He never even considers that he already has enough Pokémon, and he doesn't even know how many duplicates he's had. Compared to other trainers, Yu's situation is quite good. As he's said before, once you capture a Pokémon, you have to be responsible for every one of them. But for him, having duplicate Pokémon isn't impossible. It all comes down to fate, or whether the Pokémon is worth training or capturing. For example, Yu actually wants to capture many EV. After all, besides one rare and highly qualified one, its evolutionary forms are numerous. Flame, Vaporeon, Ragnarok, Soul, Luna, Glaceon, Leafa, and the recently discovered Sylph are all Pokémon Yu deeply desires. He even plans to collect all of these Eevee's evolutionary forms in the future. Just imagine how impressive it would be to form an Eevee team. Whether it's a gym tournament or a league challenge, just imagine how cool it would be to have all those Eevee evolved forms standing side by side. This was Yu's quirky thought. The topic had strayed a bit, and his attention returned to Yu and the others. You look so disappointed. Why don't you like Ditto? Ayer couldn't help but chuckle at Yu's expression. However, what neither Yu nor Ayer noticed was that when Ayer said this, especially when she mentioned Ditto, the Pokémon egg nearby actually trembled. That's true. Yu already has a Ditto. It's understandable that he'd have such thoughts. Xiaoxu nodded thoughtfully, her pretty face serious. Yu scratched his hair and didn't immediately answer Ayer's question. Instead, he cast his gaze over to Gyarados and the other Pokémon playing and frolicking in the stream nearby. As if completely entranced, Yu didn't reply after looking over. He didn't even blink. Ayer rolled her eyes in annoyance. A look of confusion between laughter and tears. She stepped forward and unapologetically turned Yu's head back, allowing Yu to focus on them again. Xiaoxu was stunned by Ayer and Yu's rather intimate behavior. She stared at Yu and Ayer with a thoughtful look in her eyes. Serena, on the other hand, blushed deeply upon seeing this scene. Her charming and seductive appearance was adorable, as if she wanted to see more but was too embarrassed to. Feeling shy, her cherry lips pursed involuntarily, as if she were brimming with jealousy. Her emotions were so complex and inexplicable. What's wrong? Looking at the beautiful face so close to her, Yu's cheeks flushed and his words stuttered. Seeing Yu's somewhat shy side, Ayer smiled. This smile made Yu immediately stunned again. PFFT, come back to your senses, idiot. Ayer patted Yu lightly in annoyance. Don't you like Ditto? You look so sad. When Yu heard that this matter was related to his Pokémon, he immediately came back to his senses and waved his hands repeatedly. No, how could I not like Ditto? I like every Pokémon I have, okay? It's just that I'm a little distressed. Why Ditto again? I don't have the habit of collecting duplicate Pokémon. Hey, that's it? I thought it was no big deal. Ayer rolled his eyes. Looking at Yu, who still had a worried and tangled expression, he stroked the soft fur of his long-tailed firefox and said slowly, actually, you can't think like that. You should think that you have an extra Ditto, which is a good thing. You know, Ditto only has one transformation, but having a Ditto is equivalent to having all Pokémon, right? When the time comes, what kind of Pokémon do you want? Just give an order and you'll have it all. Besides, Ditto is a very rare Pokémon. If you don't want it, Yu, then after it hatches, I'll reluctantly help you take care of it. Chapter 381 Exposed. Besides, Ditto is a very rare Pokémon. If you don't want it, Yu, I'll begrudgingly help you take care of it once it hatches. At this moment, Xiaoxu spoke up, her beautiful eyes devoid of complexity, only cunning. Ditto's transformation ability, Ayer's reminder instantly made Yu feel enlightened. After all, he wasn't the type to dwell on things, but the thought of a duplicate Pokémon suddenly appearing from the Pokémon egg he'd been so eager for was a bit depressing no matter how he thought about it. After all, it was a Pokémon he'd been waiting for so long. While he couldn't imagine a legendary beast like Suicune, he had considered Dragonite, Bangira, and Salamander, quasi-god Pokémon. But the higher the hope, the greater the disappointment. The ancient saying is true. Yu felt like someone who thought they had found a Rayquaza Pokémon egg, only to have a green caterpillar hatch after all their anticipation. No. Xiaoxu, I think I'd better forget it. It might be another Ditto, but after all, it's my Pokémon. So I have an obligation to take good care of her. Besides, aren't I going to challenge the league? Pokémon are really tight right now. You can't bear to snatch them from me, right, Yu immediately put on a pitiful expression, even shamelessly acting cute towards Xiaoxu. Meanwhile, he was following Air's earlier suggestion, lost in his own wacky world once again. Air was right, perhaps other Pokemon would suffer if they copied him. But Ditto was different. While it only had one transformation skill, it was a unique one. Furthermore, it could transform into any number of Pokemon, making its skill set much more versatile. And if he were to battle someone, wouldn't he be sending out the same Pokemon as theirs? And not just the same, it was a complete copy of the opponent's Pokemon. That is, physical strength is what is lacking the most. However, if I improve the physical fitness of Ditto in my daily life, then when I fight against others, wouldn't it be possible to truly achieve the legendary mirror battle? In other words, fighting on my own, just thinking about it is really exciting. Thinking of this, Yu now wishes to have a few more Dittos, so that he can have another Legion. Let's call it the Ditto Legion. Although Yu is only imagining it now, he can already imagine it. If he sends out Ditto every time when fighting against others, just thinking about that scene is really exciting, isn't it? Thinking about the frustrated yet helpless expressions of the opposing trainers and Pokemon, Yu couldn't help but burst into laughter. Wow, don't worry, I won't fight you for Ditto. Yu, don't make that expression too much. It's embarrassing. Xiaoxu smoothed her hair, tucking the stray strands behind her ears. He that puts my mind at ease. But, Xiaoxu, I promise you, if I encounter a talented Pokemon next time, I'll definitely help you capture one. Yu made the promise hastily. After all, no matter how you look at it, Yu felt ashamed of fighting with a girl. It was so embarrassing, so shameful. A man like him had fallen to the point of fighting with a girl. If it was a violent woman, a tomboy, or a female Tyrannosaurus, Yu might have felt at ease and not embarrassed at all. But, Xiaoxu, your attitude, your personality, is too gentle, isn't it? None of this caused any resentment, but instead a deep sense of apology. Alright. Stop being so stilted. Now that everything's settled, go see Charmeleon. And apologize if necessary. Xiaoxu pursed her lips, feigning a look of defiance. Hold on. My Ditto army, here I come. Yu rubbed his hands, his lips chapped, and rushed towards the Pokemon egg with an eager air. However, halfway through, Yu's pace slowed, and he finally stopped. His brow furrowed, his excitement completely gone. He even rubbed his eyes subconsciously, as if he had witnessed something incredible. But then his face darkened completely, and Serena and the other two, who hadn't left yet, could even hear his agonizing cries of grief. Oh, no, God, how could you do this to me? My mirror tactics, my Ditto army, my dream of domination. How could you leave me? What's wrong with you? He looks so happy just now, I don't know. He really has a boy's face. The weather in June changes at any time. It's really more changeable than us girls. Do you think Yu has suffered a blow that has caused him to become mentally disturbed? Why don't we take him to see a doctor when we get to the town? Yeah, I think so. Why don't we discuss it now, on this side? After hearing Yu's cry that resounded through the heavens and the earth, the three women didn't rush up to ask, but actually discussed on the spot whether Yu had a mental disorder. I wonder what Yu would think if he knew what the three women were thinking at this moment. At this moment, his attention was once again focused on the Pokemon egg, and his fair face was now as black as the bottom of a pot. I say, Ditto, it's a pity that you don't become a Pokemon actor. Well, Yu. Is it because you haven't been taught a lesson for a long time and your skin is itching to break? You actually deceived your master for so long. It's also my fault for being too naive. You actually believed my unrealistic idea that the Pokemon Encyclopedia is more high-tech, but now think about it. Even with the most high-tech Pokemon Encyclopedia in the world, it is impossible to detect which Pokemon is in a Pokemon egg. No, there really is, but that is also a sophisticated research instrument. Yu talked to himself, but with every word he said, he would take a step forward. Chapter 382 Causes and Consequences. With each word, Yu's pace quickened. By the end, Yu's aura was rising steadily, a terrifying murderous aura emanating from his entire body. His piercing gaze seemed to coalesce into two sharp swords, piercing the now motionless Pokemon egg. Oh, good. Now you're silent. Did you think I couldn't do anything to you just because you didn't say anything? If you confess, I'll give you leniency, but resist. I'm not unreasonable, your master. I can still consider resentencing you. Otherwise, HMPH. I don't think you'd want to experience that wonderful feeling. Yu's smile replaced a wicked smile, completely losing a sunny, cheerful image. He gave off a chilling feeling. But it seemed to be of no use. The Pokemon egg remained motionless, lying quietly on the lawn, like an irrelevant object. Yu, what's wrong with you? Are you just too excited about completing your so-called Pokemon army? Yes, Yu. The Ditto City hasn't hatched yet. If you want to find a Ditto, don't you still have one? You can go find it. At this moment, the three women were whispering to each other. One of them had already arrived and stood behind Yu. Haha, it can't be wrong. Ditto, why don't you show yourself at this time? If I catch you, you'll probably be in trouble. Yu smiled wickedly, but his eyes never left the Pokemon egg. Ditto. After Yu said this, Serena and the other two women were now a little skeptical. Although they were more skeptical, seeing is believing, hearing is not. The three women immediately looked for Ditto. But three pairs of beautiful eyes scanned the surroundings. Though the sky was already somewhat dark, it didn't affect the three women's search for Ditto. Their gazes darted back and forth, revealing Pokemon everywhere they looked, especially the stream, which was the primary focus. But after staring for a long time, they couldn't find any trace of Ditto. Huh? What's going on? Why can't I see any Ditto? It's the same here. Do you think Ditto has transformed into some other Pokemon? That's why we can't find it. Ditto is quite playful. After all, the three women, their search fruitless, gathered together to discuss again. Hey, Xiaoxu, now that you've reminded me, I remember that Ditto can transform into anything besides other Pokemon? Yeah, that's right. I've seen Ditto transform into something Chinese before. I didn't know that back then, and I almost used it as a spatula to cook. Xiaoxu nodded. Then, as if something had occurred to her, she seemed to have a sudden thought. A slightly sullen expression appeared, the corners of his mouth twitching involuntarily, his neck seemingly frozen as he slowly glanced in the direction Yu was walking. At this moment, after this unintentional reminder, Serena and Air also realized what was happening. Coincidentally, the two women followed Xiaoxu's lead, their gaze fixed on Yu, who was now approaching the Pokemon egg with a menacing look on his face, their gaze following his movements. Meanwhile, upon seeing their respective masters' reactions, the three fire-type Pokemon internally burst into tears, their voices roaring inwardly, "Great, great!" Master and the others finally understand what we're trying to say. Yu continued a strange grin, a sinister expression on his face as he stepped forward and picked up the Pokemon egg. Serena and the other two, realizing what was happening, looked helpless. However, they had discovered a loophole. They had found Ditto's alibi, proving that the strange Pokemon egg had indeed been Ditto's. But Serena was still a little confused, so she asked, Yu, how did you find out? It wasn't a Pokemon at that moment, but Ditto. You seemed to believe it at first, but you couldn't fake that excitement. Haha. Yu smiled awkwardly, but luckily his back was to the three women, otherwise he would have wanted to crawl into a hole in the ground. It was so embarrassing, a trainer like him was being fooled by a Pokemon. That's simple. I saw it all the way to the beginning, but I just wanted to play with Ditto. See when it would admit to revealing itself, but I didn't expect Ditto to still be pretending even now. This is a bit unbearable. After all, no matter how playful you are, you can't mess around with a Pokemon egg. It's a living thing, Yu said righteously, but if you looked at him from the front, you could see that he was still feeling a little guilty. After all, he wouldn't tell the three women the truth. He had to save some face and reputation. Just as Serena had said, Yu had initially believed her, and later excitedly wanted to go up and check on the Pokemon egg. But halfway up, with his eyes fixed on the Pokemon, Yu keenly noticed something amiss. Perhaps it was due to excessive excitement or nervousness, but the Pokemon egg Ditto had transformed into trembled slightly. And the unknown object encasing the original Pokemon egg suddenly seemed to come alive. Yu's eyes met those of the beady eyes. The scene was so awkward that the air seemed to quiet down. But in that instant, Yu snapped back to his senses. His mind raced, connecting the dots he hadn't noticed, leading to his current furious performance. No wonder. I see. I understand, Yu suddenly realized, and a wave of anger welled up inside him. Only now did he understand what Charmeleon had done. He felt a little regretful and even wanted to give Ditto a good beating. Ditto, you're such a stubborn guy. Chapter 383 Punishment. Yu had already arrived in front of the Pokémon egg. Under the unbearable gaze of Serena and the other two, he slowly extended his demonic claws, a sinister smile on his face. Gurgle, the sound of swallowing saliva was heard, though it was so faint that even Serena and the other two didn't hear it. But for a warrior, Yu's strength was truly astonishing. His ability to see and hear in all directions was practically ingrained in him, allowing him to pick up even the smallest sound. Upon hearing the tiny sound, Yu paused, but then acted as if he hadn't heard anything. His expression remained unchanged, and his movements continued. Yu gently patted the Pokémon egg with both hands. Despite his fierce expression, his movements were gentle, more like touching than patting. Strangely enough, Ditto's body was like plasticine, incredibly flexible and capable of countless transformations. This is why he can only use transformation. However, after transforming, Ditto's body is no longer soft and flexible, but becomes as solid as the Pokémon it transforms into. While it still has some elasticity, it's no longer Ditto's own elasticity, but has completely taken on the strength of the normal Pokémon it transforms into. Of course, this applies not only to Pokémon, but also to any other object. So, although Yu desperately wanted to pinch Ditto's face and pull it apart, he was constrained by this limitation. He had to resort to soft tactics first, then hard ones. However, no matter how hard Yu slapped the Pokémon egg, the Pokémon didn't react at all, remaining motionless, as if the previous scene was all an illusion. What's going on? Ditto, when did this brat become so patient? I've been filming it for so long, and it still hasn't revealed itself, Yu muttered softly, his expression becoming slightly odd. If it weren't for his sharp warrior senses, Yu would have even suspected he was seeing things. What Yu didn't know was that Ditto was just a Pokémon, but wrapped in that substance. It was terribly nervous, yet it dared not move. It knew full well that if it moved, it would be completely exposed. And what awaited it would be something utterly terrifying. Indeed, even though Yu usually appeared kind to Pokémons, aside from special training, if they displeased their masters, they would suffer the consequences. For example, if you were asked to do horse stance for half an hour, even though it was only a short half hour, if you showed any signs of trembling or any other minor movements, then congratulations. You'd have to start all over again. Another example, 1 to several hundred push-ups, squats, or frog jumps. While these seemingly ordinary exercises actually require the Pokémon to carry a heavy object, the weight of which is determined by the Pokémon's size and strength. It's quite remarkable. Since being captured by Yu, Ditto has only had the privilege of experiencing these two instances. Though only a few, the very thought of them fills Ditto with shudders. Ditto is terrified, yet despite his fear, he cannot show it, not even the slightest tremor. Ditto is now filled with regret, silently cursing himself, hoping he can fool his master in this state. Otherwise, thinking about himself after the squats and frog jumps, he feels like a puddle of mud. He feels as if his body isn't his own, and even feels as if his organs are shifting. Still no use? Ditto, you won't show up until I actually roast you on the fire. Will you? Yu continued his movements, but he began to threaten. However, these threats seemed to have no effect on Ditto, as if he hadn't heard Yu's threats and continued to work obediently with his Transformer Pokémon egg. Yu, this won't work. How about I give it a try? Seeing that Yu had been trying for a long time but still couldn't get Ditto to show up, Serena, who had been eager to try, now volunteered. No need, just watch from the side. Ditto, let me train this brat. It's been so long since I've been doing anything, and he's itching again. Yu turned to the three women and smiled brightly. However, the three women could see a hint of ill intention in Yu's smile. That's fine. We'll go get dinner first, but if you need anything, please let us know. The gentle and mature Xiaoxu hesitated for a moment before taking Serena and Air away, along with their three Pokémon. This cleared the space completely for Yu, his Pokémon egg, and, of course, a Ditto, to unleash his various maneuvers. Watching the three women and their Pokémon depart, Yu shifted his gaze once more, his attention fully focused on the Pokémon egg. As if unleashing some incredible hidden power, his knuckles crackled as he pressed them together, and with each clatter of frying beans, the chill in Ditto's heart grew even greater. Don't go, don't go. Serena, Air, Xiaoxu, please don't go. You kind and lovely girls, can you bear to let such a lovely me fall into the clutches of the master? Ditto shouted and roared in his heart, But looking at the backs of the three women getting farther and farther away, Ditto was helpless. After all, his master was still eyeing him covetously. It's over, it's over. Now that everyone has left, the master should be able to start training me unscrupulously, right? He, as if sensing Ditto's helpless mood, Yu licked the corner of his mouth and let out a creepy weird laugh. Ha ha ha, finally. There are only two of us left. Is Ditto very happy? Are you very excited? Chapter 384 Aggression. No, don't come over here, don't touch me, get your wicked hands off me, no, master, let's talk this over. Please don't do that. If you keep doing that, I'll call for help. Ditto felt helpless, yet unable to utter a single sound. He could only silently and furiously roar inwardly. At that moment, he wished he could transform into any ghost-type Pokemon. It didn't have to be a powerful one, just a gas-based one like Ghastly. After all, ghost-type Pokemon were immune to all physical damage. That would be a reckless act of provoking his master. After all, if he were a ghost-type Pokemon, not only would he be immune to his master's physical damage, but his elusive form would be the perfect tool for mischief, completely unfazed by his master's capture. So, even though Ditto could transform into any Pokemon or any object, he felt a little frustrated. Why wasn't he a Ghastly? Okay, that was getting a bit off topic. But actually, it wouldn't be bad if he could transform into a Cassie. Teleportation was the perfect trick for pranks. Not only could it be used for pranks, but it could also be used to escape in a pinch. It was a skill tailor-made for him. But why didn't he have it? He clearly had the transform skill, which allowed him to transform into any Pokemon and mimic its abilities. In that brief moment, Ditto thought about many things. But they were just thoughts, not the real action. After all, the voice-changing skill was great, but it also required a buffer period, the time between transformations. Ugh, why did I suddenly realize my transformation skill was so useless? In Ditto's view, the transformation skill, which was usually so useful, now seemed so useless. Those anime characters on TV, like Ultraman and Sailor Moon, they're all just deception. The idea that they're invincible while transforming and that no one dares to attack them is all nonsense. If you try transforming in real combat right in front of an enemy or opponent, unless you're incredibly fast, you'll be killed during the gap. If there's any debate about whether or not transformation is invincible, Ditto feels like it has the final say. Ignoring Ditto's complex thoughts, Yu was incredibly excited. Just now, with Serena and the other two here, he'd probably been too busy and couldn't do whatever he wanted. After all, he didn't want to leave a bad impression in the Shanliu community about him mistreating Pokemon. But now it was different. With the three girls gone, Yu suddenly felt like, in the absence of a tiger in the mountain, the monkey is king. Let me think about it. How should I deal with you? I'm going to make you feel the pain this time, or you'll forget it too quickly next time, Yu muttered to himself, as if speaking to himself, but also to Ditto. As he spoke, Yu distractedly searched for an item in his stored ring. Time ticked by, and Ditto felt like he was dancing on the edge of death. Oh, I found it. Come on, Ditto, let's see how long you can hold out. Shit, my master is a demon, right? What's with that giant hammer? Is it going to hit me? That would hurt, Ditto's inner roar echoed again. And is this really a good idea? If I'm not careful, that giant hammer could kill me. Ditto's heart trembled as he watched the hammer approaching, a fierce struggle between his conscience and his will. If Yu knew Ditto's thoughts, he'd probably laugh in disdain, then twirl his fists around and smack Ditto. Then, he'd say, "Ridiculous, truly ridiculous. Don't you see who your master is? A grandmaster. What's a grandmaster? It's the mastery of one's own strength, the pinnacle of mastery, as mentioned above. Having reached the grandmaster level, Yu's control over strength was effortless. So, he raised the hammer high and, without hesitation, smashed it down on the Pokemon egg. Yu, what are you doing? Hammer it, spare the egg. Hammer it, spare the egg. Though she'd been pulled off to cook, Serena's attention was fixed on Yu. Seeing Yu suddenly raise his thigh hammer, seemingly about to smash the Pokemon egg, Serena's expression changed. Not caring that she almost tripped Foxy, she hurried towards Yu. Serena's exclamation immediately caught the attention of the other two women, who hurried to follow. However, they were still a step too late. Although the three women were cooking not far from Yu and the Pokemon egg at that moment, by the time they arrived, They had already seen the hammer's face firmly pressed against the Pokémon egg. Seeing this, Serena and the other two women were stunned and horrified. What had happened? How could this happen? You? Serena was the most emotional this time. She covered her mouth with one hand, and with the other, her scallion-like fingers trembled as she pointed at the Pokémon egg, still in close contact with the hammer. You won't give them to. However, before Serena could finish her words, Xiaozu's emotions became even more agitated, completely losing her usual image of a caring older sister. You, what are you doing? Although we know you are angry, you don't have to be like this. You are violating the Pokémon protection law. Oh, no. Yu was also stunned at this moment. He never thought that his committing a crime would be witnessed by the three women he had just left. This is a huge misunderstanding. I don't think they have any bad impression of me, right? Will they think I'm a bad person? Never play with me again. Yu waved his hands repeatedly, his mind full of random thoughts. He wanted to speak up to defend himself, but he didn't know where to start. He was in a panic for a moment. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 385 Touched. Taking a deep breath, Air, accustomed to large-scale events, finally calmed down. Her beautiful eyes gazed intently at Yu. Strangely enough, Yu, initially a bit flustered, met Air's beautiful, lively eyes for a moment, and her heart calmed down, her earlier panic gone. Yu was like a child caught by his parents at the mall. While he didn't raise his head, he didn't dare meet anyone's eyes. It wasn't that he felt guilty, but rather that, since some time ago, Yu always felt the first to give up when he met someone's gaze. He felt an inexplicable pang of guilt, afraid to meet their gazes. Therefore, Yu turned his head away, looking at the Pokémon egg. You should have harmed the Pokémon egg here, right? Air asked cautiously. Even Serena and Xiaoguang could hear the tremor in her voice. It was clear that Air, the future queen of Kalos, was deeply uneasy. Afraid that if Yu answered yes, he would violate the Pokémon Protection Act and be immediately invited for tea by the League's Pokémon investigators the next day. Taking a deep breath and letting it out forcefully, Yu felt calmer. Looking across at the three women, their expressions of worry and anxiety gazing at him, their words of concern, Yu felt a warm current coursing through his heart. Always sentimental, he fought back tears. His nose was twitching, and if it weren't for his appearance, he'd probably have snot hanging from his nose by now. How long had it been? He had lost count of how long it had been since he'd felt this kind of concern. It seemed like it had been since the conflict with his senior sisters. Although he had since felt concern for Professor Oak and some of his friends, this kind of concern, in Yu's opinion, was different from what he'd received from his senior sisters and Zuner. But just now, he had once again sensed that special concern from his daughters, Air and the other two. But the three girls had no idea what Yu was thinking, and seeing Yu's expression, they felt an inexplicable panic. Serena had even secretly decided that if Miss Junsha came to question him, she would help Yu conceal something and make sure he wasn't called in for tea. Air didn't have those thoughts, but seeing Yu's expression, her heart skipped a beat, and an unspeakable emotion welled up within her. Looking at Xiaoguang and the other two girls, each with their own distinct expressions, Yu was completely bewildered. What was going on? What was going on? It was incomprehensible. Although Yu was dazed, he didn't dare say it out loud, or he would have a bad night. Scratching his head awkwardly, he quickly suppressed his emotion. Sniffing his clogged nose, Yu gave a shy smile. Serena, Air, and Xiaoguang, what's wrong with you? I was just trying to scare Ditto with a sledgehammer. There's no need to be so nervous. Scare Ditto. The three women were shocked. Yet, it can't be helped. Ditto has such a strong mental state. Threats were useless for a long time, so I finally took out a sledgehammer to scare it. Yu spoke to himself, shaking his head from time to time. A look of resignation wore on his face, clearly frustrated by his Ditto. When Yu regained his composure, he saw the three women still in a daze, their beautiful eyes fixed on him. Yu felt even more embarrassed. He was already a bit shy, but when had he ever endured the gazes of three women? Especially those who were considered stunning goddesses? You didn't really think I'd smash the Pokemon eggs with a sledgehammer, did you? Yuyu's eyes froze, and he exclaimed in surprise. The three women exchanged awkward glances, unsure what to say for a moment, for they'd all been thinking that. I'm sorry, this time, it was Serena who became the child at fault, her head lowered in bewilderment, her fingers twitching. Forget it. It's not your fault. It's my fault. I'm embarrassed to see how I scared you all. Well, that's easy. Since you feel bad for us, why don't you cook for us? How about repaying us? Air's face betrayed a rare little foodie look, and Yu saw a look of anticipation in her beautiful eyes. There was no other way, you never knew until you tried it, and once you did, you were shocked. They hadn't known Yu could cook before, but after the breakfast he'd made a few days ago at the equator, both Air and Xiaoxu were captivated by his rare cooking. As for Serena? Are you kidding? They are childhood sweethearts. Although they didn't spend a lot of time together, Serena had enjoyed Yu's cooking skills. Yu was now in an even bigger headache. It wasn't that he didn't want to give the three girls delicious food, but mainly because he was too lazy. In addition, when he was in the mountains with his master, he was responsible for cooking. Now that he was away from home for a rare opportunity, he could relax and of course he could be lazy. No, it was extra time to practice and train Pokemon. Okay. I promise you. Yu's mouth twitched as he looked at Air, who looked like she would cry if you didn't agree. Cantonese, who couldn't stand seeing girls cry, finally gave in. I knew you were the best, Yu. In that case, you will be responsible for breakfast tomorrow. Air's face suddenly cleared up from cloudy to sunny. Are girls really born actors? Looking at the two people in front of her who seemed to be flirting, Xiaoxu unexpectedly showed her little girlish attitude for the first time. She pouted and said with a bit of dissatisfaction, Hey, I told you to stop it. Shouldn't the focus of our discussion be on Ditto? Why are you talking about something else now? As if to save Xiaoxu's face, just as Xiaoxu finished speaking, the Pokemon egg that had been lying motionless on the lawn suddenly became bright and shining. Chapter 386 Situation. A blinding light emanated from the Pokemon egg, completely enveloping it. Even with the Ditto covering the original Pokemon egg, it couldn't obscure its radiant light. What's going on? This Pokemon egg. Can you please just leave it alone for the day? Yu, who had first noticed the Pokemon egg's abnormality, muttered in dissatisfaction. Ugh. Is Ditto playing another prank of yours? Hurry and change back to your original form, and I'll let it go. Otherwise, if you truly let go, you'll have to endure the pain of mixed doubles. His first thought was that Ditto was playing mischief again, probably another so-called prank. However, to Yu's disappointment, the Pokemon egg's light continued to shine, but beneath the outer layer, it appeared a strange, blood-red hue. What's going on, Yu? Could it be that you messed up your Pokemon half with that move? How is that possible? I told you, I was just trying to scare Ditto. And that move was the equivalent of touching the Pokemon egg, haha. Using a hammer to grind a Pokemon egg, that's really bizarre. And even if you wanted to scare Ditto, you wouldn't resort to such a dangerous method. You could use other methods, like roasting it over a fire, soaking it in water, or something like that. Air was also confused. Looking at Yu's innocent face, she couldn't help but get a little annoyed. Air, your situation seems even more serious. And what's the point of testing Pokemon eggs? Aren't you afraid that you might actually turn into a roasted egg later? Yu couldn't help but complain. Alright. Stop talking. Look at that Pokemon egg. Xiaoxu quickly acted as a peacemaker. After Xiaoxu's warning, Yu quickly turned his gaze towards the Pokemon. He saw that the layer of unknown substance that had been covering it for some unknown period had vanished. Instead, a soft, blue, unknown substance lay beside it. Fear was evident in its expression. Oh my god. Ditto is really yours, kid, Yu couldn't help but exclaim. Then, regaining his fierce demeanor, he stalked over to Ditto, unconsciously tightening his grip on the hammer instead of dropping it. Ditto, now a sluggish mess, slumped on the lawn, still recovering from the sudden glowing Pokemon. His master once again approached with a massive hammer in hand, a malicious smile undisguised. Serena and the other two, who had been defending him earlier, now looked at him with sympathy, their eyes unconcealed with a look of self-pity. Transformer, Ditto screamed in terror. If it hadn't been paralyzed by the sudden burst of bright light from the Pokemon, it would have probably run away by now. No, Running wouldn't be safe. He should have continued transforming, perhaps there would be a chance later. But it was too late to say anything now. In his current state, he couldn't escape. He could only accept his fate and wait patiently for his master's clutches. Perhaps if he admitted his mistake with a more polite attitude, his master would have given him a new punishment, perhaps even reducing his push-ups or frog jumps by a few dozen. Ditto's mind raced with ideas for how to deal with his master. Ditto, aren't you very capable? Why don't you continue transforming and playing hide and seek? Yu stretched out his voice, a playful expression on his face. He flung the massive hammer aside, and with what looked to Ditto like demonic hands, he grabbed the limp Ditto. Like playing with a piece of Play-Doh, Yu stretched Ditto's left and right sides outward, then suddenly released them, then pulled them back again. This cycle repeated, as if demonstrating Ditto's elasticity to everyone. As if this wasn't enough, Yu suddenly released his grip on Ditto's sides, then began kneading them like powder on a floor as they bounced back toward the center. Ditto was in a state of misery. If it weren't for his physical condition, Yu's torment would have likely shattered his body. Ugh. That's too pitiful. I suddenly feel so sorry for Ditto. Why don't we just plead for it again? Seemingly completely captivated by the somewhat dramatic scene between Yu and Ditto, Serena and the other two girls watched with relish like spectators, completely forgetting the still-lit Pokémon egg. Firefox finally, the kind-hearted Firefox couldn't bear it any longer. Sensing its master's presence, it nudged its calf. Firefox, what's wrong with you? Are you hungry? Not yet. We have to eat later. Serena hadn't reacted yet. Noticing her Firefox rubbing its head against her calf, she assumed it was hungry and dismissed it so she could continue watching the show. Firefox, upon hearing her master's words, the Firefox immediately bristled. What? Do I look like a foodie? I'm a lady, after all. I always keep in shape. Humph. Since you, my master, think of me this way, then I am angry and will ignore you. The Firefox was in a bad mood, puffing up his little fox face and turning his head to the side. His angry look made Serena's eyes light up. And the direction where the Firefox turned his head happened to be the direction of the Pokémon egg that was still glowing white. Following the Firefox's gaze, Serena remembered that the protagonist this time was the Pokémon egg. She was distracted by Yu again. Looking at Yu, who seemed to have forgotten the existence of Pokémon eggs and was severely torturing Ditto, although Serena felt a little embarrassed in her heart, she still reminded him, let's put aside the matter of Yu punishing Ditto for now, and come and see the situation of this Pokémon egg. Chapter 387 Luminous Hatching. Let's put aside Yu's punishment of Ditto for now. You should check on the Pokémon egg. As Serena finished her words, the scene suddenly fell silent. Xiaoxia and the other girls, as well as Yu, who was currently torturing Ditto, were stunned, as if the truth had been spoken. Playing with things is ruining one's ambition. Playing with things is ruining one's ambition. Yu, you're so grown up, yet you've become so completely engrossed in teasing a Ditto. If this happened in the 5 paths, if the master knew about this, he'd probably have his legs broken. Yu's face was filled with embarrassment, and he was screaming frantically in his heart, but as he thought about it, he shuddered all over. His hands, which had been holding Ditto in midair, instinctively loosened their grip. There was a thud. The sound of a heavy object falling to the ground was heard, accompanied by Ditto's screams. While the fall wasn't very high, Ditto perfectly executed it, demonstrating how it would transform from a hide into a meat patty or to minced meat. Its already limp body was now even more limp. It was as if it had no bones at all. If it weren't for its still moving eyes, Yu would have been misunderstood once again. Xiaoxia and Air had finally caught on. Though equally embarrassed, they were truly extraordinary women, quickly adjusting their composure. Kiki came to stand beside Serena, and the three of them gathered their heads together, investigating the cause of the Pokémon egg's white glow. This Pokémon egg is incredibly strange. Could it be some rare species? If Miss Karen hadn't personally delivered it to me earlier, I would have thought it was a glowing stone. Air and Serena were lost in their own discussion, while Xiaoxia didn't join in, instead gazing thoughtfully at the Pokémon egg. Even Yu hadn't noticed him squeeze in beside her, lost in thought as he stared at the Pokéball. What's going on? What's this? Yu was still a little stunned. Suddenly, Yu's cultural lecture had barely finished. Serena and Air were chattering again, each offering their own opinions. Wait a minute. I think I know what this is. This light is the glow from a Pokémon egg hatching, Xiaoxu, who had been lost in thought, suddenly spoke up. Though her words were a little uncertain, her pretty face was filled with certainty. What? A Pokemon egg hatching? Yu was shocked, practically jumping up and down. Ditto's previous mischief and disruption had completely drawn everyone's attention elsewhere, and they hadn't even considered the Pokemon egg hatching. Yes, I'm sure this is the sign of a Pokemon egg hatching. But, Xiaoxu's face was filled with certainty, but then a look of hesitation appeared. This somewhat conflicted look instantly made Yu's heart race. But what? Yu admitted he was a bit panicked, completely losing his usual composure. This was a Pokemon egg, after all? A living being. It was a perfect twist. Yet, Xiaoxu, what's the but? Hurry up and tell me. Stop keeping us in suspense, it's really keeping us on the edge of our seats, Serena said anxiously. Seeing the anxious expressions on the three faces, Xiaoxu said innocently, I didn't mean to keep you in suspense. I was just interrupted before I could finish. Yu blushed, touched his nose, and could only laugh to hide his embarrassment. Xiaoxu, ignore him and continue. Air rolled her eyes at Yu. Xiaoxu pursed her lips. Seeing everyone's expressions ease, she continued, but this Pokeball is taking too long to hatch. As far as I know, the glow from a Pokemon egg only lasts less than a minute. But it's been who knows how many minutes, and it's still going on. Does that mean something's happened? Yu felt a little panicked. I'm not sure, after all, I'm not a professional Pokemon nurse. Xiaoxu gave Yu an apologetic look. Is that so? Yu seemed a little disappointed. The situation of his Pokemon egg was uncertain. He was terrified. After all, this was a matter of life, not to mention his own Pokemon. The Pokeball's glow had lasted so long. Could it be a sign of something bad happening? Right. As if a thought had occurred to him, Yu's gaze returned to Ditto. He immediately saw his master's gaze fixed on him again. Ditto was trembling inwardly. Its body, which had been able to move, became limp again and began to play dead. However, Yu was not going to let it go. He took a few steps and came directly in front of Ditto, and once again grabbed it. His eyes were unfriendly. Tell me, is it because of you that the Pokemon eggs suddenly hatched? Ditto, how could Ditto admit it? Its body, which had no strength, seemed to have regained its strength. It kept shaking its head and yelling at the patient, feeling wronged. Ayer couldn't stand it any longer and quickly stopped him, saying, Alright, Yu, stop bullying Ditto. It's no use taking your anger out on Ditto anywhere else. You should think about how to deal with the situation at hand. Yeah, I checked. The nearest Pokemon Center is actually in a small town over 10 kilometers away. So far. Forget about getting there quickly. If we rely solely on our own tutorials, it will take at least a day to get there. Not to mention it's getting dark now. Xiaoxu is right. The forest is too dangerous at night. It's not advisable to rush, Ayer agreed with Xiaoxu. If the information provided by Serena was correct, then by the time they got to the Pokemon Center, the food would be cold. What should we do? Are we just going to sit here and worry? Serena found no other solution besides checking her guidebook. Chapter 388 Snorlax. By the way, Yu, aren't you a doctor yourself? Why don't you take a look at the Pokemon eggs? If I could understand, I wouldn't be standing here looking so gloomy. Besides, the medical skills I've learned are mostly used to save lives, with Pokemon only a small part. And Pokemon hatching, that should fall under the purview of obstetrics and gynecology. Although Yu felt a little embarrassed, he still stated his opinion righteously. Pokemon obstetrics and gynecology? What kind of department is that? I've never heard of it. Xiaoxu was surprised. As a Pokemon breeder, her profession was very similar to that of a Pokemon nurse or doctor, so she knew a lot more. She looked at Yu with a confused look on her face. Don't worry about the details. The focus isn't here. The most important thing right now is to understand the situation with this Pokemon egg. What should I do? I don't know what's wrong with this Pokemon egg. It won't hatch, just keeps glowing white. Although Yu was still a little panicked, he calmed down and began to analyze the situation. However, before Yu could finish his analysis, Serena spoke first. She clenched her left fist and gently tapped it against the palm of her right hand, her face suddenly enlightened. I see. Isn't this the legendary difficult labor? Serena's words fell silent for a moment, and mercrows flew over everyone's heads. Isn't it? Seeing the sudden silence, Serena realized she had been confused and said weakly without even touching her hands. Yes, Serena is right. This really is a difficult labor. Seeing Serena's pitiful expression, Yu's heart softened and he immediately agreed. At the same time, he seriously considered whether this Pokemon egg had a difficult birth. If it was, wouldn't a Pokemon inside be in grave danger? But the answer soon emerged, and it didn't disappoint Yu. The moment the Pokemon inside the Pokemon egg fully hatched, the light emanating from it intensified. In the already darkening sky, a white glow suddenly illuminated the small area. This immediately attracted a lot of attention. The Pokemon frolicking in the stream immediately came ashore and gathered around. Even Charmeleon, feeling a little sad, joined in the process after being persuaded by Pikachu and Buzzbit. Thus, every pair of eyes watched the Pokemon egg glow more and more brightly, with a mixture of anticipation and curiosity. The Pokemon egg's light grew stronger and stronger, and in the end, it emitted a light that resembled the effect of a Pokemon using the flash skill. Just as the excessive light caused Yu and his companions, as well as Pikachu and the other Pokemon, to subconsciously close their eyes, the new Pokemon they had long awaited finally arrived. As the light gradually faded, Yu and his companions, who had been keeping their eyes closed, opened theirs one by one. Suddenly, they saw that the Pokemon egg had vanished from its place, replaced by a Pokemon Serena had never seen before. Although she had never seen one before, that didn't stop her from adoring cute things. Serena couldn't wait to pull out her Pokédex, eager to learn more about this new member and companion. Snorlax. A gluttonous Pokemon that hides food beneath its long fur, but then forgets about it completely. Wow, so cute. Is that Snorlax? That chubby body. I really want to touch it. Serena's eyes lit up. It's quite cute. But I prefer the Snorlax that evolved from Snorlax. I feel it's more fleshy and cuter. Air also expressed her opinion. I think they were both very cute. Xiaoxia agreed and had already started to take practical action. The newly hatched Snorlax had long fur. Unlike Snorlax's squinted eyes, the Snorlax's eyes were large and bright, but perhaps because it was just hatched and still a little uncomfortable, its eyes were still closed, appearing hazy. From this, we can see that the evolved Snorlax has developed the habit of eating and sleeping and eating, which has been cultivated since childhood. However, this is different from the three girls' joy and love for the Snorlax. After seeing the Snorlax, Yu was surprised and happy. The surprise was, the evolved Snorlax is a glutton, a Pokemon that will not rest unless it eats 400 kilograms of food a day. Although Snorlax had only just hatched and hadn't evolved into Snorlax yet, there's a saying that goes, prepare for a rainy day. Even Snorlax's appetite was astonishing, consuming an amount equal to its own body weight in food in one sitting. However, Yu wasn't entirely without gain. To his delight, after Snorlax evolved into Snorlax, its appetite and strength were directly proportional, and its combat power was truly terrifying. And while Snorlax was a bit tricky to raise, it was still a very rare Pokemon. With this thought in mind, Yu didn't bother rushing over with Serena and the other two to check on Snorlax. Instead, he calmed his mind and probed into his storage space. It's over. There aren't many Alliance coins left. I might not even be able to feed myself anymore, and now I have to add a glutton. No, I have to find a few more money-giving boys. From now on, I must enter any competition with lucrative prizes. What? You're not that broke, are you? Haha, that's because you haven't seen the appetite of a gluttonous Pokemon like Snorlax. If you're from a poor family, it's practically impossible to support a gluttonous Pokemon like Snorlax. Unless you have a mine, you'll just be left to be eaten out of your money. Chapter 389 Apology. Oh, why do I feel so helpless? I'm a trainer, and now I'm about to become the legendary nanny. Buzzbit was fine, but now there's another with an even bigger appetite. I really don't have enough money for milk powder, Yu grumbled furiously, his initial good mood over acquiring a Pokemon as talented and high potential as Snorlax suddenly vanishing. His only thought now was how to quickly earn money for milk powder. While participating in competitions could earn him rich prizes, that wasn't a long-term solution, and it wouldn't solve my immediate needs. Yu pondered helplessly, his gaze suddenly drawn to the three women playing with Snorlax. He might as well borrow some money from Serena and the others to cover the immediate milk powder costs for Snorlax. But judging by Serena and Xiaoxia's appearance, they didn't seem wealthy. That left Air alone, but it was a bit awkward for a man as tall as 7 feet to ask a girl for money. At that moment, Air, who was enjoying herself, suddenly realized that Snorlax's trainer wasn't there. Turning back to look for Yu, she saw her gaze fixed on her. Her pretty face couldn't help but blush at Yu's sudden gaze, but she suppressed her uneasiness and waved at Yu. Yu, what are you thinking about? Come over and see Snorlax. It's so adorable. Yeah, here it comes. Yu shook his head, forcing himself to stop overthinking. After all, it was his nature to plan for a rainy day, but there was nothing wrong with living for the moment. He'd just take things one step at a time. There was no telling what would happen tomorrow, let alone the future. There was no need to worry about what might happen. Hey, come on, let me see Snorlax, Yu said with a smile, joining the playful group. After playing with Snorlax for a while longer, Xiaoxia and the other 3 girls returned to their unfinished dinner project. After all, so much had happened that evening. Sister Moon was almost out of sight, and they hadn't even enjoyed dinner yet. If things continued like this, they'd probably be stuck with dry food and water. And so, the once noisy atmosphere finally quieted down. After all, they'd been playing for an hour or two, and the Pokémon were tired. They all found a quiet spot, huddled together, and quietly enjoyed the quiet time, waiting for Xiaoxia and the others to finish dinner. Yu and Pikachu stayed behind to keep Snorlax company, the newest member. Perhaps because it had just hatched and was seeing the world for the first time, Snorlax seemed incredibly excited and active, running around Yu and Pikachu. Although its steps were a bit unsteady, and Yu even felt a bit nervous watching it, it was generally fine. Buzzbot seemed to have become close friends with Snorlax. When the two were together, their laughter never ceased. After all, while Buzzbot had grown somewhat since hatching, it was still in its infancy. After letting Pikachu look after the 2 young Pokémon, Yu stood up and walked towards a figure not far away. After Snorlax hatched, Charmeleon, with the help of Pikachu and Buzzbot, got to know Snorlax for a bit. After watching the other Pokémon play for a while, he left again. Finding another tree, Charmeleon leaned against a thick branch, staring blankly ahead with reddened eyes, lost in thought. Suddenly, a slight noise nearby caught Charmeleon's attention. Yu had unknowingly arrived beside him, unceremoniously finding a spot to sit next to him. Charmeleon remained silent, and so did Yu. For a moment, the long face seemed remarkably quiet. Finally, Yu, the trainer, spoke first, admitting his fault. Charmeleon, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry just now. I was too impulsive. I apologize. As he spoke, Yu wanted to turn his head away, forcing himself not to look at Charmeleon. But in the end, for some unknown reason, his eyes, though flickering, still looked at Charmeleon. Charmeleon froze for a moment at his master's sudden apology, completely stunned. He stiffly twisted his neck to face Yu, his eyes fixed on him, staring blankly at Yu, his master, his trainer, and his comrade. Seeing Charmeleon's somewhat stunned expression, Yu couldn't help but smile. What? You still won't forgive me? Well, if you don't, then the training will be doubled. Charmeleon was still visibly dazed, barely even recovering from Yu's apology. Hey, Charmeleon, what's wrong? I know I was wrong just now. I apologize. Please don't cry. I'm afraid of girls crying, but I'm a little scared of Pokémon crying too. Seeing Charmeleon, who had been stunned, now with 2 tears sliding down his eyes, Yu panicked and frantic. He tried to find a tissue to wipe Charmeleon's tears, but after searching for a long time, he couldn't find one. Well, after all, he wasn't as thoughtful as Serena and the other girls, always carrying tissues. However, Charmeleon still didn't respond to Yu, but the tears kept pouring down, like a kite with a broken string, flowing freely. Yu suddenly stopped looking for a tissue and locked eyes with Charmeleon. In that moment, as if he understood Charmeleon's emotions, he calmed down. One person and one pet, staring at each other, silence spoke louder than words. Charmeleon was filled with unspeakable emotions at this moment, especially when Yu apologized to him. It was too difficult, too difficult. In this era, it wasn't impossible for a trainer to completely humble themselves and apologize to you, but it was simply too rare. Chapter 390, Pursuit. Pokémon are our family, our allies in battle. This is the view of most people. However, many more view Pokémon as mere weapons, devoid of emotion, to be commanded or abandoned at any moment. Take, for example, Those evil organizations that exploit the power of Pokémon to achieve global or regional domination. The lives of Pokémon are of no consequence to them, of no consequence at all. Sometimes, even a single experiment involves the death of an unimaginable number of Pokémon. While there may be some within these evil organizations who treat Pokémon well, these individuals are often the only ones who constantly vacillate between being weapons and being allies. Let alone an apology. It's a good thing they don't get angry and use Pokémon as a punching bag. Only a trainer who truly views Pokémon as friends or family would truly humble themselves and offer an apology. Charmeleon's previous trainer was one of those who treated Pokémon as mere tools or toys. Charmeleon's existence was completely dispensable to him. Otherwise, he wouldn't have mercilessly abandoned it after repeatedly losing to Yu in Pokémon battles. Forget being kind to it, even knowing it was wrong. He still didn't show the slightest bit of kindness to Charmander. Not to mention during battles, when Charmander's trainer gave erroneous orders, he simply shifted all the blame for failures onto Charmander. Therefore, Charmander's life has been incredibly difficult since joining his original trainer. Some irresponsible trainers at least ensure their Pokémon are well fed and well watered every day. But Charmander's original trainer, if in a bad mood, would not only not feed Charmander, but would even exploit its potential. Perhaps because of his original owner, even after evolving into the current Charmander, Charmander was reckless during special training. If Gyarados' personality stems from its own nature, then Charmeleon's personality is most similar to his, aside from Pikachu, Yu's longest-serving Pokémon. They both have no fear of death in battle, practically fighting with a reckless approach. During special training, they train themselves to the bone, leaving Yu with absolutely no need to worry. While Yu holds every Pokémon in his care, each one of them being very independent, Pikachu, Suicune, and Charmeleon are the ones he feels most confident in. Alright. Man up, stop crying. If Pikachu and the others see you, they'll probably laugh at you, Yu said with a smile, gently patting Charmeleon's shoulder. Charmeleon nodded vigorously at the bright smile before him, raising his hand to wipe away the tears. Haha, that's right. Yu felt relieved. He folded his arms over his head, leaning back against a tree. He and Charmeleon watched the gradually darkening night quietly. Just as Yu and Charmeleon were reconciling, a fierce chase was unfolding on the other side of the forest, far away from where Yu and his group were camping. Quick, catch it. Don't let it get away, that's prey we've been ordered to catch. Don't let it get away, quick, if we don't catch it, we'll be in trouble. Several people dressed in black, with a large S-shaped pattern on the front, were chasing an unknown Pokémon with a petite, blood-red body. Naughty, the unknown Pokémon, hearing the noise behind them, panicked and ran away. Fearing it would be caught up and captured again. It would periodically look back to see if its pursuers were catching up. Whenever it sensed someone approaching, it would instantly accelerate again, as if it had endless energy. Damn it! That little thing is so fast. If it keeps going like this, we won't be able to catch it until dawn. After another collective cold attack, the unknown Pokémon nimbly dodged them one by one. The group of black-clad men chasing after it, more precisely, the members of Organization S, became furious. This wasn't just because they hadn't been able to catch the unknown Pokémon, but also because they felt they had been tricked by the little creature they despised. Perhaps because of its status as a Pokémon, even in the darkness of the deep forest, the unknown Pokémon was able to move with such agility, completely unfazed by the prospect of losing sight of the path and causing any mishaps. It was as if this forest was its own childhood home, like a stroll in its own backyard. For some reason, the members of Organization S chasing after it hadn't brought any lighting equipment. They could only follow the petite black figure swaying in front of them, following closely. With so many eyes watching them, they weren't likely to lose it. We're going to lose it, one of the S organization members suggested. This suggestion was quickly accepted by the other members, one of whom volunteered, let's leave this to my Pokémon. He's very good at tracking, then send it out quickly. What are you talking about? Yeah, hurry up, or we'll lose it. It's getting dark, that little thing is really fast. We've been chasing it for nearly 2 hours, and in the rush of the chase, we even forgot to bring any lighting equipment. Seeing that this member was still keeping it a secret, the other members hurriedly urged him on. Alright. Stop bragging. You're going to break it, the volunteered member of Organization S, clearly impatient, waved his hand impatiently after being urged on by so many of his companions. He also flung a Pokemon out. Come out, Golbat. Use ultrasonic wave to follow the figure in front. Golbat please save, recommend, and comment. These are the motivations that keep Kenai writing. I hope everyone will support you. Chapter 391 Big Wolfhound. Whoosh, the fluttering of wings echoed. Suddenly, a bat Pokemon with a massive mouth appeared above the pursuers. Golbat radiated invisible sonic waves, aiming directly at the unknown Pokemon ahead. As a bat Pokemon, Golbat, as its owner had claimed, possessed an excellent ability to track objects in the darkness. Its ultrasonic ability, in particular, acted like radar, tracking its target with constant feedback from all around, providing uninterrupted tracking. Naughty, as if sensing its complete tracking, the unknown Pokemon, completely panicked, suddenly halted, ignoring the danger of being overtaken by members of Organization S. Hey, everyone, look at that thing up ahead. It stopped. It won't know it can't escape with so many of us chasing it, so it's probably ready to give up. Haha, he's a bit self-aware. Once locked onto my Golbat, whether it's a human or a Pokemon, there's no escape. The S organization member who sent Golbat seemed quite pleased with himself. As soon as he finished speaking, his smug expression instantly turned to one of terror. Under the cover of darkness, a rock flew from nowhere and landed in front of everyone. At first, they took it lightly, thinking it was just someone accidentally kicking a rock, but later they changed their minds. Golbat, flying smoothly in the sky, seemed to be struck by something. Its body, still using ultrasonic waves, stumbled and began to fall. While it wasn't enough to incapacitate Golbat, it was still in serious condition. Just as everyone's attention was completely captivated by Golbat's sudden fall, a sudden scream erupted from the crowd. It started as a single chorus, but later it became a continuous chorus. Who the hell is this bastard who's just throwing garbage around? Who is it? Who's there? Stand up right there. I promise I won't beat you up. Ouch, that hurts. That's not garbage, it's rocks. A sudden chaos erupted among the pursuing crowd, a cacophony of voices rising and falling. Everyone, quiet down. That's rockfall, clearly the move that Pokemon said it was using. A knowledgeable member of Organization S quickly reacted and pointed at the clamoring crowd. What? That guy actually used rockfall? Damn it. Don't let me catch it, or I'll give it a good beating and report it to the higher-ups. Alright, stop talking. That guy's trying to escape again, damn it. Keep chasing Golbat. Don't let him get away. The Golbat trainer was furious. He'd almost lost a golden opportunity to show off, and even risk becoming the butt of a joke. Haha, you're supposed to be a master tracker? I think your Golbat isn't any good enough. You'll have to rely on mine, a sneer echoed. A trainer he normally didn't get along with suddenly stood up, a sneer in his face. Why, Village Repair, my Golbat isn't good enough, but your Pokemon is. Stop looking for trouble, okay? Golbat's trainer gritted his teeth, glaring at his normally antagonistic companion. Haha, you really aren't. I gave you a chance to show off, and you didn't take it. So don't blame me for stealing your spotlight. The S organization member, Village Repair, completely ignored his opponent's glare. Okay, very good. Then go ahead, if you can do it, I'll be waiting for you. Please begin your show, the Golbat trainer said, his face furious, as if he was about to withdraw his Golbat. Everyone, shut up. It's already late, and you're still in the mood to argue. If we don't catch that Pokemon, we'll all be reprimanded, maybe even punished. At this moment, a member who seemed to hold considerable prestige among the group shouted down. Clearly, this member held considerable prestige among the group, and the scene suddenly quieted down with his roar. And you, Village Repairman, if you have any good ideas, get out there right away. The other party is trying to get away. If not, just follow along and chase them. Village Repairman was clearly unconvinced. As soon as the man finished speaking, he immediately retorted, HMPH. Who said I don't have any ideas? At least I'll be better than someone else's Golbat. Oh. Really? I told you to start your show? After the previous member's scolding, Golbat's trainer didn't retract Golbat into the Pokeball. He crossed his arms, looking pleased with himself. HMPH, open your eyes and take a good look, Village Xiu sneered as he tossed a Pokeball. It arced beautifully against the darkness, and a brilliant crimson light burst forth from its interior. A massive Pokemon, completely enveloped in crimson light, appeared on the field. In the shroud of darkness, only its crimson eyes could be seen. It's your turn, Big Wolfhound. Use scent detection, perhaps inspired by the previous member's words. Village Xiu didn't hesitate and issued the order. Immediately, in the darkness, the newly emerged Big Wolfhound's nose twitched, as if displaying some scent. Its crimson eyes, permeating the surrounding darkness, looked eerie. Big Wolf finally, as if completely locking onto the scent of the unknown Pokémon, the Big Wolfhound gave a low bark and then took the lead, launching into pursuit. It seems that the Wolfhound has taken effect. Everyone, hurry up and catch up, and try to catch that Pokémon in one go. I don't know who called out. Whoever took the lead ran up first, and followed closely behind the Wolfhound. Damn it, Golbat, we can't admit defeat. You continue to use ultrasound, and we will conduct an aerial pursuit. Golbat's trainer was certainly unwilling to let his mortal enemy get the first credit, so he quickly ordered to catch up. Seeing that the group of people chasing him suddenly sent out a new kind, the unknown Pokémon was immediately startled, and did not even bother to stop and take a breath, and hurriedly ran again. After all, judging from the situation, this Pokémon seems to be more difficult to deal with than the previous one. Thanks to Keizu for the reward of 100 book coins. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 392 The Pursuit continues. The forest night was a tranquil place, a mere sound of nature filling the air save for the occasional chirping of bug-type Pokémon. But tonight, a group of uninvited guests shattered the tranquility of the night forest. In the stillness of the forest, a scene unfolded. A group of people were chasing an unknown Pokémon, the chase and escape a thrilling spectacle. Damn it! How could that Pokémon be so fast? Big Wolfhound, leave us alone. Chase it and subdue it. Village Xiu felt utterly humiliated. He had promised his Big Wolfhound that he would catch up, only to find himself left behind. This humiliation was the last thing Village Xiu wanted. He quickly ordered his Big Wolfhound to speed up, determined to subdue the creature. The loyal Big Wolfhound lived up to his master's expectations, moving with the swiftness of a rabbit and the stillness of a virgin. That nimble figure moved at breakneck speed, and just as it seemed to be catching up with the unknown Pokémon, its sharp teeth shone with a sharp white light, dazzling and chilling in the pitch-black forest. Naughty, the unknown Pokémon running ahead, seemingly sensing the danger posed by the strong wind from behind, let out an unidentified cry. It frantically stopped its forward charge, swiftly turning around and fearlessly facing the onslaught of the ferocious Wolfhound. Haha, that little thing is overestimating its own abilities. It's not even running as hard as it can, and it dares to stop? Prepare to become my Wolfhound's meal. Village Osamu, who was following closely behind the pursuing group, sneered upon seeing this. He then glanced smugly at the trainer of Golbat. The arrogance and defiance in his expression were unmistakable. Zubat's trainer was furious. Although he couldn't clearly see Murashige's expression under the cover of darkness, he could still sense the presence of his longtime enemy. Everyone, hurry up. They've stopped. Take this opportunity to catch them. Hurry up, whoever's the first to catch that little thing. I'll commend him to the captain. It was undeniable that there were one or two talented leaders among this group. After such encouragement, they rushed forward like a shot of chicken blood. However, before they could get far, a dark shadow flew backwards towards them. Some organization members who couldn't dodge were knocked down by it. Because the pursuit was so intense, a fall was a disaster. A domino effect immediately set in. While not everyone fell, a large number were still affected, forcing the once momentum charge to halt. Did you know? Oh shit, what's that again? Another rockfall. It's unlikely to be a rockfall. That thing's so big and kind of soft. Hey, hurry up, you're crushing me. Get out of here. Longmian was thrown into confusion once again. It had been that unknown Pokémon, taking advantage of the darkness and the Wolfhound's ferocious charge. After a sudden pause, it reacted swiftly, performing a 360-degree spin and a downward kick, achieving unexpected results. By the time the Wolfhound recovered, it was too late. It was sent flying. The Wolfhound, sent flying backward, didn't disappoint the Pokémon either. Like a bowling ball, it knocked down the pursuers one by one. Having once again seized its chance to escape, the unknown Pokémon didn't hesitate. Without a word, It immediately broke free and took off. That's your tracking artifact. Haha, it's really killing me. The Golbat trainer, whose trainer was caught in the collision when the person in front of him was knocked down, wasn't angry at all. Instead, he looked gloating. He didn't seem worried at all, as he was being punished by Shantou for not catching that unknown Pokemon. You, Village Xiu was furious. What do you mean by you? You're still no match for me. In the end, it all depends on my Golbat. Haha, I'm not saying anything about that Golbat rat of yours. I think you'd better forget about it. Don't let yourself get lost while flying. What did you say? Say it again if you dare. Say it again. Why do you still want to fight? Come on, who's afraid of who? The situation suddenly became tense. The two Pokemon, originally sent to track the unknown Pokemon, were now on edge over their respective masters. It looked like a fight was imminent, and the two trainers were even putting some distance between them. At that moment, they had completely forgotten that they still had a mission to capture an unknown Pokemon. The actions of these two people made the leader of the group's veins throb, and his hands clenched into fists. Before the trainers on both sides could react, they mercilessly struck them on the head. Enough. What time is it now? It's time for the mission. Don't forget, if we fail the mission, not just you, but everyone else will be in trouble. The leader clearly held a high reputation among the group, and the tense atmosphere immediately calmed down as soon as he spoke. Before the two perpetrators could even offer an apology, the leader barked out another order. We can't afford to waste time now. We must capture that Pokemon, or we'll all be in trouble. So, to save time, everyone send out your Pokemon to pursue it. The leader was truly experienced. His calm demeanor revealed that he'd been involved in Pokemon hunting for a long time, practically a seasoned expert. And you too, this is mission time. Normally, I wouldn't care about you, but now you must obey my orders. Be quiet, everyone. Aren't you going to decide the winner? Then let's be fair and see who can catch the Pokemon first. After issuing this warning, the leader began to stir up the atmosphere. Do you have any confidence? Give it your all, brothers. Save and comment. Let's go. Don't let Can I write single-player games alone. Chapter 393 Daily Dishwashing. Everyone, do you have confidence? Catch that Pokemon? A resounding roar suddenly echoed above the forest, shrouded in darkness. It was followed by a flurry of shouts, rising and falling until they became a unified unison. Yes. 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 The leading member nodded with satisfaction, secretly pleased with himself, but also aware of the principle of using both carrot and stick. Excellent. If this mission is successfully completed, I will personally petition the higher-ups for everyone. Promotions and raises will be no problem then. Catch the Pokemon, promotions and raises, catch the Pokemon, promotions and raises, catch the Pokemon, promotions and raises. The atmosphere in the room was instantly ignited by the leading member. Everyone shouted excitedly, and if you looked closely, you could even see a green light flashing in their eyes, a look of greed. Excellent. So what are we waiting for? Let's set off towards our goal of promotions and raises. The leading member felt a surge of confidence, a surge of indescribable pride within him. With a wave of his hand, he tossed a Pokeball. As the Pokeball glowed red, it became clear that the creature he had shot was a leopard. With the first person leading the charge, the others followed suit, throwing Pokeballs forward as if they were free. Suddenly, the entire night forest was filled with the sound of Pokeballs opening. Dazzling red flashes illuminated the small area surrounding them. Trainers called out their Pokemon's names, their voices tinged with the whimsical tones of middle school students. Come out. Abrax, fight. Pidgeot. Meanwhile, on the other side of the forest, in a clearing near a stream, a bonfire burned brightly, surrounded by a variety of Pokemon. They huddled together in groups of 3 or 2, their expressions varied from lazy to excited. Yu and his group, having finished dinner, were cleaning up afterward. Since the girls had cooked, Yu always took the initiative to wash the dishes. Serena and the other 2 girls cleared the dishes, accompanied by their own Pokemon. Pikachu and Charmeleon were among the Pokemon accompanying Yu. Perhaps because there were so many dishes to wash, even Yu, a martial arts master with agility, found it difficult to keep up. Pikachu, struggling to help his master, was carrying several plates with his short arms. His staggering form made Yu anxious. He feared Pikachu would stumble and drop the plates, even if he wasn't paying attention. After all, plates are expensive. At least for a small, voracious Snorlax, who now had a small Snorlax, Yu had to tighten his belt. It's no exaggeration to say that if you were traveling alone, he'd probably be breaking his steamed buns in half to eat them. Pikachu, it seems your training isn't enough. Your legs are so unstable, even carrying a few plates is still wobbly. Yu sighed and shook his head, a look of disappointment on his face. Without waiting for Pikachu to protest, he immediately made a decision for it. So, Pikachu, next time, double your training. Increase the time you spend in horse stance. After all, look at your legs, they're still not strong enough. Look at Charmeleon. What a difference, Yu, speaking in a tone of praise for someone else's child, addressed the still dazed Pikachu and made the decision. Pikachu, seeing his master actually adding to his training, Pikachu felt incredibly aggrieved. His frustration only intensified when he glanced at Charmeleon. At that moment, Charmeleon stretched out its seemingly slender but powerful arms, scooping up all the plates of food. He stared straight ahead, as if oblivious to Pikachu's resentful expression. His steps were steady, his breathing calm. If Pikachu could speak, he would have been speechless, shouting at Yu, "What's that look in your eyes? Can't you see the size difference between us? And you're making up excuses like, my lower body isn't good enough, and you need me to train more, and since no one else was helping you wash the dishes, I mercifully offered to help you with a few, and you treat me like this. Do I have it easy?" Me, however, Yu, seemingly oblivious to Pikachu's pitiful expression, walked to the stream with his dishes in hand, squatted down, and began to wash. Pikachu, sigh such partiality, no Pokemon rights at all. Though indignant, Pikachu still painstakingly placed a plate of dishes next to Yu, waiting for him to wash them. Though Pikachu was furious, he didn't dare to let his temper get the better of him by throwing or hurling the dishes. After all, he'd been with his master for so long. Pikachu had more or less understood his master's character. If he did that, he'd be a heartless master. No, he'd be a cash-strapped master, probably considering squeezing him out of his shell. And because of his size, Pikachu was only capable of carrying dishes, a self-awareness he possessed. Even if Pikachu really offered to help wash the dishes, Yu would likely refuse without hesitation. After all, Pikachu washing the dishes wouldn't end up like the dishes washing Pikachu. And then Yu would have to fish Pikachu out, which would be quite troublesome. Lisa Charmeleon, though afraid of water, was still up to the task of washing dishes, given its size. The tasks were quickly divided between the two pets. Yu washed the dishes, Pikachu passed them around, and Charmeleon carried them. For a moment, the dishes were washed very efficiently, and the atmosphere between the two pets was harmonious, a subtle tacit understanding slowly forming. Chapter 394, Camping in the Wild. By the forest stream. Even though it was just the daily grind of washing dishes, Yu felt a special warmth. Though it was just a mundane grins of life, both humans and Pokemon were beaming with genuine joy. Pikachu Yu reached out to take another dirty dish from Pikachu and was about to start washing it when his ears twitched imperceptibly. Initially, he took no notice and continued washing the dishes. But as he continued, his handsome eyebrows deepened, and his expression darkened. He paused involuntarily. Pikachu took another bowl and was about to hand it to Yu when he noticed his master had stopped, so he didn't notice Pikachu's movement. Pikachu seeing Yu's somewhat odd behavior, Pikachu looked up at him in confusion and called out a few times. After seeing his master ignore him last time, Pikachu had given up. After all, the two had been together for years, and they had already developed a tacit understanding. Pikachu simply waited quietly, confident that his master would tell him when the time came. Someone's actually capturing Pokemon, but where exactly is he going? Yu pondered silently, calming his mind and focusing his attention on his ears, hoping to pick up any useful information. Having learned from his previous experiences, even when washing dishes, Yu would still be alert to his surroundings. After all, they were in the wild. Not in the safe comforts of a city, with no cozy, warm rooms or beds, but only the ground as a blanket. No, maybe a tent would be a good option now? But that wouldn't be of any use in facing a crisis in the wild. Faced with the dangers of nature, a tiny tent is as sparse as a sheet of paper. Forget about the raging storms and rainstorms. Just think of the Pokemon in the wild, they're not all as aggressive as their captive counterparts. Forget the gentle grass-type Pokemon, after all, most type Pokemon don't have much attack power. At best, they're only a fraction of a gambler's sleep, making them incredibly difficult to defend against. But beast Pokemon are a completely different beast. With a good nature, you can sit down and chat, but with a fiery one, they'll just go for it. There's even a rumor that a pack of swarming bears once destroyed an entire village in a fit of rage. Of course, facing such a situation in the wild, there are countermeasures. For example, if you're strong enough and have a strong fist, any danger is practically a mere decoration. While living in the wild may often bring dangers, doesn't it also bring opportunities? Many powerful Pokemon and Pokemon trainers embarked on journeys to cultivate their skills before reaching adulthood, often camping outdoors. For example, one of the 4 heavenly kings of Kanto, the Dragon-type King Tu, was a prime example. While studying at Pokemon Academy, his grades were often near the bottom. But after a year of traveling, his skills skyrocketed, and he even became the champion of the Kanto League. Perhaps this is the joy of travel, learning a wealth of knowledge and experience not taught at Pokemon Academy. Only seedlings that have weathered the storms of life can thrive. Yu, however, didn't believe he possessed the ability to completely ignore the dangers of surviving in the wild. Therefore, he could only release his senses while playing with his clothes, acting as a warning. After all, if he were alone, anything would be fine, even spending the night in a tree. But things were different now. He was accompanied by 3 beautiful women, all of whom were incredibly beautiful. Therefore, he had to be even more cautious. Yu couldn't afford to risk anyone around him getting hurt. Meanwhile, a Pokemon chase and capture had just occurred on the other side of the forest. Yu hadn't noticed it at first, and the noise wasn't even loud enough for him to even register. But then, with their continuous shouting, if Yu hadn't heard it, even a Grandmaster like him would have been ruined. After noticing the commotion here, Yu forced himself to calm down and listen to the unfolding events. Upon learning that the other party was specifically aiming to capture unknown Pokemon, Yu's first reaction was to prevent them from succeeding. This reaction was visceral, even reckless. After all, despite his careful eavesdropping, he had only learned that the other party's goal was to capture unknown Pokemon. He had no idea who they were, what kind of high-level combat power they possessed, or how many men they had. Everything was still unknown. Yet, even knowing this, Yu's deep love for every Pokemon still compels him to act accordingly. Don't say Yu's actions seem a bit exaggerated, you have to know someone who does just that. And that person, of course, is Xiaozhi, the man known as Master. In Yu's eyes, this man is truly the man of luck in this world. Over the years Yu has known him, Xiaozhi has done almost everything for Pokemon without regard for the consequences. He's always the most proactive in every Pokemon-related matter. And whenever a Pokemon encounters danger, he's always the first to rush forward. It's no exaggeration to say that this first place carries immense weight. Therefore, even the usually unyielding Yu has to concede to Master Zhi when it comes to such dedication to Pokemon. And somehow, this guy has an inexplicable affinity with Pokemon. Whenever a Pokemon gets together with him, they quickly become close friends. This made Yu jealous, and he was filled with envy and hatred. Chapter 395 Excuse. Why does Yu sometimes feel envy and jealousy when facing Satoshi? It's simply because Pokemon are often subconsciously wary of humans. But when facing Satoshi, that vigilance is lower to the point of being completely absent. Yu simply can't do that. While his Pokemon are usually quite affectionate towards him, that's all based on a lingering bond. I remember Professor Oak once conducting an experiment where they had 2 Pokemon face off against each other to see which one would ultimately choose. As you can imagine, Satoshi, known as Satoshi's master, emerged victorious. That experience deeply devastated Yu, and for a brief moment, he felt a sense of despair. At that moment, when Yu and Satoshi faced the same Pokemon, Yu had used every trick in his power, just to get the Pokemon to choose him and ultimately fall into his arms. But precisely because of this, there's no harm without comparison. Xiaozhi, whose brain wasn't as bright, even a complete novice, didn't have the same cunning thoughts as Yu when faced with this situation. He simply opened his arms and embraced the Pokemon, and the Pokemon leaped right into his embrace. Upon witnessing this, Yu felt his heart shattered into pieces. As if some unpleasant memory had come to mind, Yu shuddered, his gaze focused once again. When he came to his senses, he saw Pikachu and Charmeleon standing silently beside him, with Pikachu looking at him with a worried look. Don't worry, Pikachu, I'm fine. Yu took a deep breath, looked at Pikachu, rubbed its little head, and smiled. Pikachu looked delighted at the touch of its owner's head, even nudging Yuyu's palm. Pikachu's chirping was incredibly cute and adorable. Faced with Pikachu's seemingly coquettish gesture, Yuyu didn't refuse. Instead, he comforted the two Pokémon once more before his expression grew serious once more. For him, time was money, not a single second could be wasted. Losing no time wasted. However, to avoid the three women noticing any clues or worrying about him, Yuyu remained calm, suppressing his anxiety as he approached the still busy women. Hey, Aor. I'm a bit full from dinner tonight. I'm going for a walk to digest it, but it's so dark now, and we're still in the forest. Wouldn't it be dangerous? Serena spoke before Aor could say anything, her words filled with concern, yet also hinting at a refusal. Yes. And wasn't it agreed that we'd be in charge of making dinner, and you'd be in charge of the dishes? Have you done them yet? Aor pouted, also slightly unhappy. I don't think I've had that yet. But I'm so sorry, I'm really full, and I want to go out for a walk to digest it. Yuyu was so embarrassed. He hadn't expected his random excuse to be so blunted. Yuyu, are you really bloated? But I remember you ate about the same amount last night as usual. Xiaozu joined in, a puzzled look on her pretty face. That might be because I've had an upset stomach. I'm really not feeling well. Yuyu was stunned for a moment, then clutched his stomach, a trace of pain on his face. Are you really feeling upset? I remember I should have painkillers in my backpack. And Serena was right, it's already dark now, and the forest at night is even more dangerous. Yuyu, you should not go out. Xiaozu also began to persuade him. What's more, she seemed to see through Yuyu's excuse and refused to let him leave. Xiaozu actually put on a pitiful look. Well, forget about the medicine. Medicine's so precious, it's best saved for emergencies. With my physique, I just need to go for a walk to digest it. Yuyu was stunned for a moment, but reacted quickly, waving his hand. Alright. Since you're so insistent, then go for a walk. A stroll will help you digest it. As for the dishes, I'll take care of them. Xiaozu pondered for a moment before responding immediately. Yuyu was ecstatic upon hearing Xiaozu's reply. He turned and was about to run, but was immediately stopped by Xiaozu. Hey, Yuyu, I haven't even finished my words yet. Why are you in such a hurry? You can go for a walk, but you have to promise me you'll be back within at least half an hour. Xiaozu looked at Yuyu with a resentful look. However, after hearing Xiaozu's conditions, Yuyu seemed a little hesitant and uncertain. Yuyu's indecisive attitude immediately irritated Aor. She looked disgruntled, her hands on her hips puffed up, her beautiful eyes glaring at Yuyu. What's this? Yuyu and Xiaozu already agreed to let you go for a walk, even promised to wash the dishes. And you wouldn't even agree to such a small favor? And how could you just leave three of us weak women here in the forest at night? Aor's words, like a wake-up call, instantly sobered Yuyu, forcing him to suppress his initial hesitation about finding the unknown Pokémon the group was tracking. Aor was right. While helping the unknown Pokémon being pursued was certainly important, it couldn't let it hinder other matters. After all, there were too many uncertainties in what Yuyu was trying to accomplish. Furthermore, in Yuyu's subconscious, Serena and the other two had unknowingly taken a higher position than the Pokémon. Of course, that didn't include the Pokémon he was tracking. I promise you. I will be back in half an hour at the latest and stay by your side, Yuyu said solemnly, his eyes full of seriousness. Okay. Don't be so serious, you're making me nervous. Aor's cheeks flushed slightly, and she quickly pushed Yuyu away. Chapter 396 Worry. After receiving genuine permission from his son and three daughters, Yuyu was initially hesitant. But at his son's repeated urging, Yuyu cheered, turned, and disappeared into the darkness. A call echoed, Pikachu and Charmeleon, let's go. Pikachu Lisa after seeing their master run away, and then receiving the greetings, the two Pokémon appeared extremely excited. Their speed didn't slow at all, chasing Yuyu directly into the dark forest. Yuyu was remarkably carefree, not even considering collecting his Pokémon into his Pokéball. Pikachu, though a bit of an anomaly, aside, Charmeleon, a regular Pokéball resident, showed no fear of getting lost. However, after Yuyu left, three sets of eyes watched him and his two pets disappear completely into the darkness. Aor was the first to look away. Looking at Xiaozu and Serena, who were still staring at the darkness ahead, Aor sighed softly. Xiaozu, is this really appropriate? What? Xiaozu asked, puzzled, after regaining her composure. Stop pretending. I don't buy into those shoddy amateur acting and excuses, do you? I'm sure even Serena can see through it. Upon hearing Air's words, Serena immediately protested. Air, what do you mean? What are you saying? I act like I'm stupid. Serena's stamping foot, puffing out her cheeks in anger, was adorable. Okay, I made a slip of the tongue. But Serena, you should be able to see the flaw in Yu's excuse, Air pleaded, still sounding certain. Yes. Why, Xiaoxu? But Air's change of subject shifted Serena's attention to Xiaoxu. Hey, you didn't think I really didn't notice? Honestly, I've been traveling with Yu for so long, how could I not see through his excuses? Xiaoxu looked very helpless inside. Seeing Air and Serena looking at her with puzzled eyes, she continued to explain, but even if we can see that those are his excuses, what can we do? Are we really going to stop him from going? I believe Yu must have his reasons for being like this. I agree with that. Yu wouldn't be like this for no reason. There must be a reason. Otherwise, he wouldn't make such a lame excuse, and he's bloated. His appetite is comparable to that of Snorlax, and I've never seen him look so full. Serena looked very sure of this. Air glanced at Serena, the traitor, with a hint of annoyance, but she still expressed her concerns. That's what I said, but I have a feeling it's not that simple. I have a feeling Yu is doing something behind our backs again. He promised us before. How could you be like this now? Air, whose expression had been calm and composed just a moment ago, now spoke with a flutter of emotion, her eyes slightly reddened, her beautiful eyes filled with worry. Air's heart was filled with complex emotions. After all, Yu had promised them that he would tell them the truth and take them with him if anything happened. But now Yu had left alone again. As if to hide her sadness from others, Air lowered her head, her expression hidden in the darkness, making it difficult to discern her current expression. But his constantly swaying shoulders revealed something. Though no tears could be heard, the intermittent sobs were heartbreaking. Air's emotions grew more and more intense, seemingly oblivious to the presence of her two beloved sisters, completely absorbed in her own world. Suddenly, Air felt a hand on each shoulder. The sudden movement sent a shudder through her delicate body, bringing her back to her senses. Under cover of darkness, she forced back the tears that threatened to flow. With lightning speed, her hands wiped away the tears from her eyes, then she looked at her two beloved sisters with a composed expression. Air tried to conceal her feelings, but the occasional twitching of her beautiful nose betrayed her. But even though she knew what was going on, Xiaoxu and Serena tacitly chose not to mention it. The two women were silent at first. It was clear they had thought about what Air was thinking, but as for their subsequent thoughts, only they knew. Air, I understand how you feel. Or perhaps we all share the same thoughts. But despite this, I will always choose to remain silent. Xiaoxu was silent for a moment, then her beautiful eyes met Air's, and she expressed her own thoughts. Air, I know you may have some complaints about Yu's actions just now. But his purpose is the same as ours. We all care about each other's safety, Serena said, unpacking her thoughts. Perhaps because Serena and Xiaoxu's words were so unexpected, Air didn't know whether she hadn't reacted or was deeply affected by their words, falling into deep thought. Perhaps Serena had too much on her mind, and her opening words seemed to unleash a flood of conversation, a venting of the same anguish within her. Air, I know you're worried about Yu, but aren't we all too worried? Even Yu himself, I think he feels the same way. After all, we've traveled for so long, we've gotten to know each other. Yu is a truly remarkable person, so remarkable that we can't even touch their world. Serena spoke again, but her tone was somewhat subdued at this point. Though she spoke this to Air, as a form of comfort, it was Serena's inner thoughts, from the moment she met Yu until now, from their separation to their reunion, Serena's feelings had remained constant. Perhaps from the very beginning, even when they were still young, Serena had involuntarily developed a sense of distance, neither too far nor too close. Chapter 397 Pokemon Trainer. Serena, at that moment, both Air and Xiaoxu stared at Serena in stunned silence. This girl, usually gentle but sometimes irritable, kind-hearted and skillful, concealed all this on the surface, revealed a profound pressure hidden within her. As if not wanting to overwhelm her companions, Serena took a deep breath and smiled once more, though it seemed forced. Sorry, everyone. Something unpleasant just came to mind. Serena apologized, but Xiaoxu and Air ignored her. their faces pensive, as if they were mulling over Serena's words. Yes, Serena was right. After traveling with Yu for so long, the more they interacted, the more they sensed his secrets. Not to mention his medical skills, which could be considered miraculous, his terrifyingly high level of weakness alone created a distance between them. The distance here refers to the world they claim to understand. Because they are ordinary people, Serena, even though her teacher is the renowned Kalos Queen, Yashio, of the Kalos region, is still only the upper echelons of the ordinary world. After all, the world of martial arts is inherently mysterious. Perhaps it wasn't so long ago, but later, due to the pact of peaceful coexistence with Pokémon and to avoid being too shocking, the martial arts community, or the ancient martial arts community, has tacitly chosen not to reveal themselves to outsiders. Even if they do, they keep it secret to avoid unnecessary trouble. Furthermore, the ancient martial arts world, unlike the peaceful coexistence of Pokémon and humans, is often fraught with bloodshed and mutual calculations, making it a brutally cruel world. Consequently, this is why Yu always chooses to face danger alone whenever faced with a situation or other challenges. Yu is far from conceited, claiming to be invincible and fully protective of those around him. He doesn't want to let his close friends get hurt because of a single mistake or carelessness. After all, this was the martial world. A world far more cruel and unforgiving than the harmonious world of humans and Pokémon. Furthermore, Serena and the other three women were still ordinary people, completely defenseless in the face of danger. This was even more so when encountering ulterior motives or ruthless warriors. In Yu's opinion, it was best for ordinary people to avoid the ancient martial arts world, at least to avoid encountering danger. But while Yu's idea was sound, he forgot that without weathering the storm, there's no rainbow. Only by enduring harsh conditions can a sapling grow into a towering tree. He had forgotten what his master, Zhao Kuang, had planned for him in the beginning, sending him off at such a young age and letting him experience the trials of the martial world for years. Perhaps it was because he cared too much, and so feared losing. After the appearance of his closest senior sister in the conflict with his childhood sweetheart, Yu had cherished his friends, fearing they might suffer. Perhaps you're right, Serena. There's still a gap between you and Yu. Perhaps in times of danger, it's not that he doesn't want to lead us, but that we simply can't be led by him. If this continues, we might just become a burden, her bitter teeth, her beautiful eyes fixed on the horizon, completely devoid of color and a slightly empty, heartbreaking sight. After Air said this, Xiaoxu finally came to her senses. Indeed, within the entire traveling group. Not to mention the amateur individual combat prowess, even in terms of Pokémon alone, they were all at least Quasi-King level trainers, and there were even 2 or 3 Quasi-King level Pokémon. While this might not seem like much compared to powerful gym trainers or league champions, in the Pokémon League Challenge, a top 23 finish would be a sure thing. Don't underestimate the top 23. Consider how many people from a region compete in the Pokémon League. Just the 8 gym badges alone eliminate countless people. Ultimately, the number of participants in the Pokémon League Challenge is at least in the hundreds. Choosing the top 32 from that pool is no exaggeration. Looking at the rest of the team, aside from Yu, the star player, the others are essentially support players, or even, to put it bluntly, mere vases. After all, the 2 Pokémon performers on the team are mere showpieces. While they possess some combat power, facing off against truly powerful trainers and Pokémon would be completely useless. While they wouldn't be instantly defeated, that would likely only take a few rounds. Well, at least from a Cantonese perspective, performers don't offer any advantages in a one-on-one fight. However, in a 2v2 battle, they might be a bit more interesting. After all, every performer competition involves the coordinated efforts of 2 or more Pokémon. There was also a Pokémon breeder, a very high-level one at that. While that was acceptable, it only focused on caring for Pokémon. In terms of symmetry, their combat power was practically zero. Aside from Yu, the main Pokémon trainer, the 3 women only had secondary professions, branching out from the Pokémon trainer role and no longer strictly Pokémon trainers. Because a pure Pokémon trainer, beyond caring for Pokémon, was dedicated to continuously strengthening their Pokémon. Even those pure Pokémon trainers had very simple dreams and goals. For example, Yu wanted to become a Pokémon Master. Some simply aspired to surpass the Supremas. Some specialized in a particular attribute, aiming to become masters of that particular attribute. And some. In short, the purpose of a Pokemon trainer can be summed up in one sentence: to make Pokemon stronger, incredibly stronger. Chapter 398, Becoming Stronger. For a moment, the three women were silent. The dishes still piled by the stream and the post-dinner chores were simply left to the side. All three women lost their temper, only self-reflection and resolve. Yet, who am I to blame you now? After all, he's still a drag. He's already been kind enough to tell us to leave. Finally, Air spoke first, breaking the silence, but her tone was tinged with bitterness. However, Air's words only made Xiaoxu and Serena even more silent. After all, among the three women, excluding some achievements, Air was the most skilled in Pokemon battles. Serena and Xiaoxu were about evenly matched. Although Xiaoxu had obtained her Pokemon earlier than Serena and had been traveling longer than Serena, Serena was still the worst of the three. In reality, that wasn't the case. Xiaoxu's primary occupation was a Pokemon breeder, so she focused most of her energy and attention on raising Pokemon and learning how to care for and raise them. However, Xiaoxu's inherently gentle and kind nature disliked fighting, prioritizing the health of her Pokemon. Unsurprisingly, Pokemon battles were rare. Consequently, from the time Xiaoxu first acquired Vulpix to her current journeys with EU, her Vulpix had barely reached elite rank. Before meeting EU, it had been at ordinary rank. The reason it was able to reach elite rank now was because EU, driven by his battle-crazed nature, couldn't stand the weaker Vulpix. It was only after Xiaoxu reluctantly agreed to let EU train Vulpix for a period of time that it finally reached elite rank, barely gaining a modicum of self-preservation. Because of this, Professor Oak rarely received Pokemon sent back by EU during their subsequent travels. After all, not to mention EU's discerning eye, the Pokemon he captured had to suit his tastes. Furthermore, by the end of the day, Serena, Xiaoxu, and Air had plenty of empty space for Pokemon. Concerned about the three girls' safety, EU didn't want to be separated from his own Pokemon, so he placed all his extra Pokemon on the girls. This also served as a trump card for them to protect themselves. After all, EU's style of battling Pokemon was completely unfettered, with no restrictions on their fighting methods. This philosophy fostered a tendency for them to fight independently. Therefore, even without EU's command, the Pokemon would be able to unleash their full potential, and there would be no adverse effects due to the girls' low trainer levels or their Pokemon level status. Let's all work hard together from now on. We must not become a burden to EU, we must fight alongside him. Air's eyes were filled with determination as she glanced at Xiaoxu and Serena. With a faint smile on her face, she took the lead, extending her right palm and placing it flat in front of the other two women. Through the portable light bulbs placed nearby, she could see the backs of the white hands lying flat in front of her. Serena and Xiaoxu's gaze held each other with such significance that they understood each other's words in just one glance. They exchanged a knowing smile and, without hesitation, extended their hands, one after another, placing them on the back of Air's first hand. In that moment, though nothing was said, simply staring at each other in silence, the three women could clearly feel the bond of friendship between them, once again deeply connected. Come on, then let's do it together. Starting tomorrow, starting this moment, let's work hard to become stronger. At this moment, in the dark forest, three figures stood, each one determined, their fighting spirit ablaze with flames that seemed to dispel the surrounding darkness. Three figures of stunning beauty. Elsewhere, after leaving their camp, Yu spread his awareness. However, because his entire focus was on the group of Pokemon hunters, he was unaware of what had happened to the third woman in the camp after he left. Although Yu was extremely anxious, he forced himself to remain calm, not letting any unnecessary emotions cloud his judgment. His ears, in particular, twitched as he ran, as if the bat Pokemon were receiving ultrasonic feedback. Invisible layers of sound waves began to radiate outward from him. To put it bluntly, it was a bit like a SF-style ear. Yet, it wasn't as impressive as the legendary wind-hearing ear. After all, it had its limits. With full concentration, it could hear sounds from several kilometers around. Although Yu tried to remain calm, the thought that if he missed a step, the pursued Pokemon might be killed in a fatal attack involuntarily quickened his pace. Not only was his internal energy channeled to Schuinger, but some of it was also channeled into his legs. The receding scenery and the whistling wind around his ears showed that Yu was pushing his speed to its limit. If Yu were to face an ordinary Pokémon, they might not be able to catch up. But with Yu's own Pokémon, the situation was completely different. Although it was dark, the moonlight that occasionally filtered through the treetops revealed three figures, looming and darting swiftly through the forest. From the moonlight that poured across the earth, one could clearly discern a single figure, followed by yellow and orange figures. The last figure, seemingly the slower of the three, was particularly noticeable. Wherever it moved, a flickering orange flame followed it through the darkness. It was eerie, but precisely because of the orange flame, if it were pale blue, a timid trainer traveling in the darkness would have mistaken it for the legendary Will-O-the-Wisp, and would have been lucky if they hadn't fainted on the spot. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 399, Racing. Swoosh, three figures darted swiftly through the dark forest. Their bodies made it clear that two Pokémon were following the one in front. If someone were to observe closely, they would have noticed that the figure in front wasn't paying attention to the road, seemingly lost in thought. Yet, whenever they encountered an obstacle, they dodged it effortlessly, as if they had already known the path and had walked it countless times before. As everyone knows, no matter how strong a human's physique is, it can't rival a Pokémon. But at this moment, that figure was far ahead. Although the two Pokémon behind it were still close behind, a slight gap was still visible. Pikachu was incredibly excited. It had been ages since his master had taken him out alone. Even with the addition of a new light bulb, Pikachu, as the boss, remained magnanimous and didn't mind his underlings. Just the sight of Pikachu following Yu's heels revealed its excitement. If anyone had seen Pikachu's eyes, they would have been astonished. A pair of tiny, jet-black gemstones, twinkling and gleaming, seemingly luminous in the darkness. Its gaze never left its master's figure, fearing that if it wasn't paying attention, he'd vanish in the next moment. However, as Yu's Pokémon, speed represented number one. While Charmeleon wasn't slow, it was still a bit behind. Yu's Pokémon were known for their speed, so if we were to rank them from fastest to slowest, Pikachu would undoubtedly be number one. Suicune, the embodiment of the North Wind, was slightly behind. Then, in descending order, Buzzbot and Blaziken were equally matched, followed by Dinabit, Gyarados, and Crawl. Since Snorlax had only hatched today, Yu hadn't had time to test it. Since Yu was leading the way, Pikachu only had to stay close behind Yu and not get lost. Under these conditions, Pikachu gradually adjusted, his breathing rate gradually decreasing as he ran. He even had time to tilt his head slightly to glance at the flickering orange flames behind him. Through the moonlight and the flames, he could even make out Charmeleon's face, and of course, he could also faintly see a look of disdain on Pikachu's adorable face. Indeed, anyone who saw him at that moment would have seen no mistake, disdain, a very human expression of disdain. Pika, Charmeleon, I say, hurry up. You're so slow. If it weren't for waiting for you, my master and I would have already vanished. Charmeleon was immediately unconvinced. As if to prove his speed, Charmeleon sprinted to catch up with Pikachu. He then glared at Pikachu with a defiant expression. Although they were close, as mentioned before, competition was inevitable. It was like Sima's Honda and Zhuge Kongming, Shen Gongbao and Zhang Ziya, each of them intimately familiar with their opponent and understanding each other intimately. Li Zha, why are you so slow? If you keep going this slow, the master and I will leave. You can just enjoy the scenery here by yourself. Seeing himself surpassed by Charmeleon, Pikachu couldn't stand it. Despite his seemingly short limbs, his pulse rate was incredibly fast. Pika, you want a speed contest? You're not qualified. I'll defeat you. While the truth was just as Pikachu had said, Charmeleon refused to admit it, and his pace quickened even further. His dragon eyes squinted disdainfully at Pikachu's petite frame. Liza, haha, that's just because I see you're the boss of our team, so I can't afford to offend you. Otherwise, even if I were to bother with a tiny thing like you, I could crush you with just one finger. Pika, wow, it's only been a moment, and you've become so arrogant. I wonder which one was crying just now. Charmeleon could vaguely see the playful look on Pikachu's face through the dancing flames of his tail. It would have been fine if he hadn't seen it, but once he did, Charmeleon's fur flew up. His dragon eyes, filled with sternness, glared fiercely at Pikachu, undeterred by Pikachu's status as the boss. Pika Pika, HMPH, still not convinced? Then I'll make you completely convinced this time. Get ready to eat my dust. After leaving these arrogant words, Pikachu's seemingly short limbs moved with all their might, like a flash of yellow lightning. A single yellow figure could be seen darting through the darkness. Lisa, isn't it all about speed? Watch me catch up to you completely. Then you'll have nothing to say. A sudden roar echoed from the darkness, followed by the flight of a red arrow. The dancing flames on its tail even shone a faint crimson light in the air. Two figures, one red and one yellow, darted swiftly, creating a unique scene in the dark and silent forest. However, this also caused Pikachu, who had been following behind Yu, to surpass Yu in a fierce competition, and then stalked ahead at a rapid speed. They seemed determined to fight until the outcome was decided. By the time Yu came to his senses, it was too late. He held his forehead with his hand and chuckled bitterly. What are these two guys up to? Seriously, I almost regret bringing them out here. Fortunately, the two Pokémon were heading in the direction of the group Yu was tracking. After constant snooping and probing, Yu finally locked onto a general direction, though he was still a little uncertain. No. We don't know the enemy's situation yet, so we can't just rush in like that. After all, I have to exploit my advantage of being in the dark while the enemy is in the light, right? Having made up his mind, Yu hurriedly mobilized the internal energy in his Danshin, channeling it through his meridians and into his legs. He had unleashed his King Kuang to its fullest potential. While not reaching the legendary speed of fleeting glimpses, it was still very fast, and in a short while, he had already caught up with the two Pokémon. Chapter 400, The Quarrel Breaks Out Again. Watching the two figures gradually grow larger before his eyes, Yu couldn't help but lick the corners of his dry lips, a playful smile curling them. Before the two Pokémon could react, he had already surpassed them, and with a dashing turn, he faced them head-on. Pikachu Lisa, the two Pokémon raced with unbridled joy, each with eyes fixed on the other, each pushing their speed with reckless abandon. After catching sight of Yu, they tried to stop, but it was too late. Inertia kept them from stopping as they faced Yu, and two Pokémon even slid forward for a distance. In the faint light, he could still make out the deep plow marks they had left. As Pikachu and Charmeleon stared in horror, Yu clenched his fists and mercilessly dealt them both a brutal blow. Hey, you two, can you quiet down for a bit? We have something important to do. You're making such a fuss, aren't you? Yu scolded them seriously. If I'd known you were so restless and mischievous, I wouldn't have brought you out. On the contrary, I think Ditto is quite good and has potential as a Pokémon agent. Yu was furious. He had brought them out because he had something important to do. He still didn't know the strength of the Pokémon catching team, which was why he had brought Pikachu and Charmeleon with him. If the other party was also a dancer, then things would be simpler. He could just go in and start fighting without saying anything. But if the other party wasn't a warrior, but an ordinary trainer, well, if he sent out Pokémon, he'd be in big trouble. Putting aside the question of whether or not he'd be harsh with Pokémon given his personality, the mere mention of the peace agreement between humans and Pokémon, which Yu had learned from his master and was widely circulated in the ancient martial arts world, filled him with trepidation. As both a warrior and a knowledgeable Pokémon trainer, Yu was somewhat aware of the power of Pokémon, not to mention the legendary beasts that were infinitely more powerful than ordinary Pokémon. And most importantly, that legendary beast wasn't just any ordinary beast, but one with a divine role. It was truly unique, an ancient beast that existed alongside Arceus, the god of creation. While Dancer had previously been described as formidable, facing off against some of the most powerful Pokémon was a completely different story. Just kidding, let's not even talk about Arceus, the god of creation. He was a true Pokémon world boss. Just take Dialga and Palkia, who controlled time and space, respectively. For example, if psychic powers are considered bugs, then the power of space and time, from any perspective, transcends psychic powers. They're no longer considered natural laws. After all, Professor Oak once published a paper on this topic during his exploration of the Sinnoh region. The paper went something like this: theoretically, if one possessed both the power of space and time, two powerful world laws, then creating a new world would no longer be a dream, and that world would be identical to this one. Therefore, in order to rescue the still hunted unknown Pokémon from the clutches of the villains, Yu had painstakingly thought through several rescue plans. Besides himself, the Pokémon themselves were also essential. But now, looking at the two Pokémon before him, who looked like children who had made a mistake, Yu couldn't help but feel a sharp pain in his teeth. He didn't know what he had been thinking, actually bringing these two enemies along with him. Before he even began to implement his plan, his Pokémon were already showing signs of dwindling stamina from the speed race. If the villain still had some moral integrity, he wouldn't be afraid in a one-on-one fight, but if they launched a group attack, Charmeleon and Pikachu would be in dire straits. Forget it, I don't want to say anything about you two. Anyway, you two must reflect on your actions. If there's a next time, no, there won't be a next time, Yu angrily declared, before withdrawing his attention from the Pokémon once again. He turned his head to look ahead, at the sight that had come his way. Through the gaps between the trees, Yu could clearly hear a commotion on the other side. It was a mix of human shouts, Pokémon roars, and the sound of hurried footsteps. Hurry, hurry, don't let them get away, the chance for a promotion and a raise is right here, make sure you seize it, Big Wolfhound, hurry up. Don't let the other guy steal the credit, Golbat, don't give in. The credit belongs to us. Calming down once again, Yu's ears twitched incessantly. Sounds, invisible to the naked eye, were clearly reflected back into his mind through the obstruction of the forest trees. Seeing his master, seemingly aware of something new and ignoring him, Pikachu couldn't help but glance at Charmeleon, standing next to him like a punching bag, with a hint of annoyance. Pikachu, 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 huh? Did you hear me? Master said he will never take you on a special mission again. Charmeleon, after hearing Yu's reprimand, seemed a little uneasy, perhaps because it was his first time out with Yu. He lowered his head, a look of reflection. But after hearing what Pikachu, the so-called boss, said, he immediately became dissatisfied and retorted, Lisa, what a joke. When did the master say he wouldn't bring me out? It was clearly because you were naughty and disrupted the master's plans, and now you have the nerve to say that to me. I've never seen such a shameless Pokémon, Pika, haha what a joke. You know, I can't remember how many times I have been out with a master alone. That's already considered proficient. And you, a newbie. It's conceivable that the master will definitely send me, a veteran, on various missions in the future. End of this chapter. Thank you so much for reading until the end. Don't forget to give it a like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription or donation encourages us to continue. Thank you all, see you in the next video.